What's up guys, this is your favorite fanfic YouTuber, the Fanfic Majesty, and welcome to another amazing video. You can follow me on Patreon for exclusive stories. 7mm Chapter 136, My Stupid Brother, Please Customize. Advertisement, Mr. Kong, if you have anything to say, just say it. We are all our own people. Chen said straight to the point. Ahaha, it's nothing important, I just heard some recent news. As he spoke, Kong's expression became slightly more serious and he said, Marine has become increasingly powerful in recent years, so the world government's attention to Marine has also continued to increase. There are recent rumors that the commander-in-chief of the armed forces, Black Panther, is about to retire. Black Panther? Chen was a little surprised. Black Panther is the Marshal-in-chief of the world government's armed forces, and his status is higher than that of Kong, the Marine Marshal. It can be said that he is the big man closest to the core of world government power, second only to the Five Elders. If the Panther Marshal retires, I will take his place. Hearing this, Kong already had some guesses in his mind. However, he said nothing, waiting for Kong's next words. In this way, a capable person must be selected for the position of Marshal Marine. I have to congratulate Mr. Kong in advance. As for the candidate for Marshal Marine, he should choose among the three admirals. Chen said. Both Sengoku and Zephyr are good candidates. In the original plot, this position was also filled by Sengoku. According to normal procedures, this should be the case, but the current situation on 27 is different from the past. Although Marine is growing at a much faster rate than in the past, pirates are rampant all over the world, especially at Marine's growth rate. Such a situation naturally requires a candidate with both wisdom and strength to take on the important task, Kong said. General Sengoku is calm, admiral, and has outstanding strength. General Zephyr is also a very good candidate. As for Garp, well, let's not mention it. I certainly know the strength of Sengoku's character. As a Marine admiral, he is naturally capable of shouldering his responsibilities, but he still lacks some sharpness and is more composed than sharp. Zephyr, this guy is too gentle. Pirates are a bunch of lawless gangsters. Kindness cannot change these sinful scum. So, legendary Marine, the best vice admiral in history, the world government is very optimistic about you, Kong said meaningfully. Haha, Marshal Marine? You really pay enough attention to it. Chen smiled lightly. You have to know that you have refused to be promoted to admiral more than once. It is not a good thing to refuse orders from the world government, Kong said seriously. It's not like the commander-in-chief of the Black Panthers has not resigned yet. Let's wait until you become the Marshal of the Armed Forces. Chen did not answer directly. Advertisement. Looking at Chen's serious eyes, Kong also knew his stubborn character. Once something is decided, it is difficult for outsiders to change it. Although he regretted this, he did not continue to persuade. However, deep down in my heart, I silently listed Chen as one of Marshal Marine's successors. In other words, if Chen agrees, then, you can erase one or two words. The two chatted for a while, and Chen left the Marshal's office. Poor Lupor. Just left the office. The phone bug in my arms rang. Arriving at a deserted place, Chen picked up the phone. Master Chen, according to your instructions, I have arrived at Battleila Island. Kakuli's voice came with a hint of shock. The woman that Master Chen mentioned has also been found. I know, thank you for your hard work, it is my honor to serve you. After the two ended their brief conversation, Chen took Yamato and left the Marine headquarters and went straight to Impel Down. This was a plan he had arranged in advance on his way back to the headquarters. Although Kaido does many evil things, Yamato is his daughter after all. Kaido was arrested, Yamato didn't even see the last 10 sides. Chen decided to let the father and daughter meet. To know, in the original plot, Yamato has always called himself Odin and worshipped him like a brainwash. Just like a crazy fan who chased stars in his previous life. But Kaido is a father after all. In order to change his daughter who is a brain-dead fan, he not only calls Yamato his son together. Even threatening to kill her with a seastone bomb makes it hard to imagine Yamato's brainwashing. Chen can only say, the power of the forced halo is so heaven-defying. Not long after passing through the Gate of Justice, you enter the Calm Belt. Advertisement. Ordinary ships here cannot travel freely. Firstly, because there is no sea breeze, the sailboat cannot move forward. The second point is that Calm Belt is a paradise for sea kings, even if you can sail in Calm Belt. However, facing the powerful sea kings, many of which are comparable to the Marine Vice Admiral, ordinary ships can only end up with the ship destroyed and people killed. The purpose of Chen's visit here is naturally the Impel Down, the most dangerous prison in the Calm Belt area, which is said to hold the world's most dangerous prisoners. Hello, please show me your identity. When approaching the port of Impel Down, soldiers on guard stopped Chen. The soldier was a little surprised when he saw the badge of Chen Vice Admiral. I am the Vice Admiral of our headquarters, Chen. Chen said calmly and showed his identification. What, you? Are you Lord Chen? The soldier on guard looked at Chen in surprise, with some doubts in his eyes. However, when he verified that the ID document was correct, the Marine soldier's eyes immediately became fanatical. As expected, it's Mr. Chen, the legendary Marine Vice Admiral. Excuse me, can I ask for 1,000 signatures from you? The soldier asked expectantly. Chen's name has long been resounding throughout the sea, and countless Marine soldiers regard him as the idol they pursue throughout their lives. However, it was the first time for the impelled down soldiers to see Lu Chen, so their attitude was particularly enthusiastic. Naturally, Lu Chen would not refuse such a small matter. I want to ask you something, which cell is Kaido on? Lu Chen asked. Although with Kaido's strength, it is basically certain that he is imprisoned in the 6th level of Eternal Hell. However, there are too many prison cells in Impelled Down, 253 cells, so it is better to ask in advance. Huh? Sorry sir, Kaido of the Beasts are not detained here, the soldier replied immediately. This answer surprised Lu Chen. Kaido was not imprisoned in Impelled Down. It is said that he was imprisoned in a secret place by the world government. The specific circumstances are unknown, the soldier said. After finishing speaking, the soldier glanced curiously at Yamato who was following Lu Chen. He didn't know why Lu Chen Vice Admiral would bring a little girl to such a dangerous place. After receiving the news about Kaido from the soldiers on guard, Lu Chen was not only surprised but also had many guesses. His purpose today was to bring Yamato and Kaido to meet, but now it seems that there is no chance. I'm really lucky today. Not only did I meet Garp Admiral, but I also met the legendary Lord Lu Chen. The soldier whispered happily. Huh? Garp is here too. Lu Chen raised his eyebrows slightly when he heard this. His voice did not escape Lu Chen's ears, but aroused his curiosity. With Garp's personality, he would never come to a place like this on a normal day, unless there is something important that forces him to come here. Based on recent events, Lu Chen could almost guess Garp's purpose in coming here. Stupid brother. Lu Chen shook his head and thought to himself. He stopped, turned around and walked towards Impelled Down with Yamato. Chapter 137. Conversation with the King, please customize. Advertisement Prison Warden's office. Lu Chen was leaning on the sofa in the office, with a tall man sitting opposite him. His rugged face, black uniform coat, and bat wings on his back didn't seem to match his tall figure. This person is the future Supreme Commander of Impelled Down Prison, Magellan. However, he is now considered the second in command. I wonder if Vice Admiral Lu Chen is here. Does he have anything important to do? Magellan asked. His tone was very polite, and he obviously knew something about this marine legend. However, Impelled Down is a stronghold of marine, and extremely dangerous criminals are imprisoned. Normally, Marines would not come to a place like this easily without a special mission. Ah, there's nothing important. I'm just here to chat with you, Lu Chen said calmly, and put Yamato on the sofa aside. Huh? Magellan's eyes widened, not expecting this answer at all. That was my original plan, but now I want to see someone more. Lu Chen said with a smile. Subsequently, leaving Yamato in the warden's office, Lu Chen, accompanied by Magellan, walked towards the depths of the prison. Just when the two were about to enter the underground prison, they saw a tall figure walking towards them. Seeing this familiar figure, Lu Chen took the initiative to stop. Brother, why are you here? Garp asked doubtfully. Should I ask you this? Lu Chen did not answer, but looked at Garp with a smile on his face. Facing Lu Chen's gaze, Garp averted his eyes with a guilty conscience and said, Of course I'm here to check the security situation here. If I let Roger get away, it will be difficult to catch him. General Garp, what do you mean by this? Even if you think so in your heart, you don't have to say it out loud. Magellan's expression changed when he heard this, and he smiled bitterly in his heart. Ah, don't worry, I didn't mean it. Seeing Magellan's expression change, Garp scratched his head, looking unconcerned. Of course. Lu Chen also found that Garp's face was not very good looking. Lu Kong understands why this can put a nervous guy like Garp in a bad mood. Advertisement, oh. Lu Chen had no intention of exposing Garp. Garp greeted the two of them and left in a hurry. I always feel that Mr. Garp is a little strange. Magellan looked at Garp who left in a hurry and couldn't help but feel a little confused. The foundation of the Impelled Down prison is built on the seabed, like a tower submerged under the sea. Only the top ground floor is exposed to the sea, becoming a symbol of Impelled Down on the sea. The ground floor contains the prison's governor's office, as well as rooms for officials and special persons to inspect their belongings. Even if Marine comes, they must be inspected according to the procedures. Of course, Lu Chen did not receive this inspection procedure. Even the warden Magellan was full of fear when faced with the legend who captured Roger, the Pirate King. The floor under the seawater is a veritable prison. There are 6 floors in the prison, and each floor corresponds to a different level of prisoners. From top to bottom, the more heinous and dangerous prisoners are, the deeper the floors are. The two took the elevator directly to the 4th underground floor, where Blazing Hell is located. By the way, Warden Magellan's office is on this floor. There are also kitchens and granaries, and the temperature on the entire floor is very high. Just like a huge iron pot, it is full of boiling blood pools and seas of fire. From the 3rd to 4th floors, you can jump directly into it from the exhaust port in the middle. But if the footing is wrong, it will not be as simple as being burned. Prisoners will be burned on this floor to disinfect before being imprisoned. The elevator can only reach this point, because going deeper underground is a more dangerous place. That kind of place holds extremely vicious criminals, and even for Impelled Down's jailers, it poses a high risk. The 5th floor is freezing hell. Because the temperature is too low, there are no phone bugs installed inside. And there are a large number of raised military wolves inside, which can ensure that the annoying people inside will not have an easy time. Magellan kept helping Lu Chen along the way, introducing the situation of Impelled Down. The two passed through the freezing hell on the 5th floor and soon reached the 6th floor, which is also the deepest floor of Impelled Down. The light here is dim, and there are only modest lights in the empty corridor, barely illuminating the darkness. Eternal Hell. This is the name of the 6th level. Not because the space here is infinitely vast, but because once you enter here, it will represent eternal and endless pain until the end of life. Relatively speaking, although the space on the 6th floor is indeed very large, it holds very few prisoners. Because, very few prisoners are qualified to be detained in the deepest place of this prison. And Roger happens to meet this condition. Tread. Advertisement. Hearing the sound outside the cell, Roger raised his head. When he saw clearly the identity of the person coming, he was stunned and looked at the other person in surprise. It seems that you were surprised. Didn't you expect that I would come?
What a surprise, you actually came here. Roger smiled and said.
While talking, Roger was secretly thinking about why Chen came to impel down at this time. Could it be that Garp said something to him? Impossible. Roger immediately overturned this idea in his heart. He understands Garp's character. Although the two have different positions, Garp is completely incapable of betraying others. What's more, the relationship between him and Garp is not just a confrontation between pirates and marines. It's even more of a sympathy between opponents. After thinking about all this, Roger felt relaxed.
Are you here to make fun of me? Roger looked at Chen indifferently.
I went to sea just to make fun of you in person. I don't have such bad taste, Chen said with a faint smile. Then, he casually sat cross-legged on the ground, looking at each other with Roger through a layer of iron bars. Haha, you are really awesome. What Garp only dreamed of doing, you did it easily, Roger laughed and said. Being able to make fun of himself at this time is probably only Roger who has such magnanimity. Thank you. But after catching you, Wanakuna's mess, money-related, is really a headache. Hearing the conversation between the two, Magellan felt that something was wrong. The attitude of the two people is not like that of enemies at all, but more like old friends who have not seen each other for many years. Actually, I understand what you did. After all, for a person who is terminally ill and has a short time to live, the way of death is not important. The meaning of death is far more important than the method, Chen said with a smile. Hearing Chen's words, Roger was stunned for a moment, then smiled very calmly. It doesn't matter, those guys have escaped from you anyway. Exchange a fate that is doomed to death in exchange for a glimmer of life because of your companions. It's indeed a smart choice, Chen seemed to agree. Suddenly he looked up at the stunned Magellan beside him and said, Mr. Warden, can you allow us to talk alone? Chapter 138. Rouge, the kid's name is Ace, right? Please customize. Advertisement. When Magellan left, Chen was the only one left in the entire corridor. The empty corridors, the occasional groans and curses coming from the darkness, were the criminals being held in prison. A long time, Chen suddenly asked, Roger, if you can only choose one between your dream and your wife and children, what choice would you make? As soon as these words came out, Roger was stunned. He looked at it in astonishment. Apparently this question was beyond his expectation. By grafting the name of your weapon onto your child, do you want him to inherit your dream of becoming a pirate? It does sound like something to be proud of when the flame of dreams continues in a child, Chen said lightly. The indifference on Roger's face had long since disappeared, replaced by an extremely horrified look. He stared at Chen, and it took him a long time to react. It was Garp, he told you, and only this B***** D knew about it. This B***** D must have told you? Roger growled ferociously. As soon as these words came out, instead, he calmed down and immediately denied the speculation. He believed that Garp would never tell a second person about this. Thinking of these 723 places, Roger looked at Chen in shock, wondering why he knew his secret. To this, Chen looked at him deeply, then turned and left. Just 1 month after Roger was captured, the world government announced a big news: Pirate King Roger will be publicly executed in Logtown in half a month. Logtown, Roger's former hometown. I have to say that this move by world government has indeed had a very good effect. At least, for pirates all over the world, this news is enough to shock them. World government bastards, I'm going to kill them. Shanks angrily tore the newspaper into pieces, his face twisted with anger. Don't be impulsive. Roger doesn't want you to die just because you give up on yourself. Rayleigh stopped in front of Shanks and looked at him with sharp eyes. Advertisement. Although he had known for a long time that Roger was suffering from an incurable disease, he was ready to surrender. But after hearing the news, Rayleigh still felt helpless and guilty. Are we going to abandon the captain? He was willing to be caught by Marine for us, Bullet said solemnly. Not only a few of them, but also the news of Roger's execution made all the members of the Roger pirate group feel extremely shocked and angry. Rayleigh was silent for a long time, then raised his head and said, Guys, although this is extremely bad news, as his crew, you still have to see him. Marine really spared no effort to wipe out the Roger pirates in one fell swoop. Margao glanced at the newspaper and said calmly. Although his tone was calm, the shocked expression on his face could not be hidden. What, Mr. Margao, you said this was a trap? A little boy wearing a pink kimono with a teapot lid left unfounded and looked at Margao in shock. This is naturally Momonosuke after escaping from Wano-kuni. Not long ago, he was handed over to the care of the Whitebeard Pirates by Rayleigh. Kazuki Oden used to be Whitebeard's partner. Although he was abducted by Roger halfway, their relationship is still good. Naturally, Whitebeard would not leave the child of an old friend alone. Knowing that it's a trap, will the Roger Pirates still fall for it? Josie said. This big guy looks brave and burly, but his voice is a bit naive.
Even though it had been a month since the news of Roger's arrest, every time news about this man came out, they would feel unspeakable shock. You underestimate the world government and Marine. What they focus on is the meaning of Roger's death. Whitebeard's expression looked very indifferent.
To publicly execute the Pirate King in his birthplace is a sign of contempt for pirates and a determination for so-called justice. The world government wants to use Roger's death to suppress the pirates' arrogance, he said calmly, CHBH, seeming to have digested the news. An island in New World. Hey, that's really exciting news. The man wearing red sunglasses sat on a chair with a copy of the latest news next to him. He was wearing a pink coat and red cropped shorts, and his weird outfit was extremely eye-catching. It is a new powerful force that has emerged on the sea in recent years, the leader of the Don Quixote family, Doflamingo. After seeing the news that Roger was about to be publicly executed, he actually smiled happily after being briefly shocked. Doflamingo stood up and opened the door, bathing in the sunshine. The era of the Pirate King is over. The next era will welcome a new master. He opened his arms and laughed.
Advertisement. If anyone saw this scene, they would think he was a madman.
Only the family cadres around him saw the future and hope in this man. They are convinced that this man will become a legend in the next era. In the sea area, a small boat was drifting freely with the current. The boat has no sail, only 2 wooden paddles. A man was lying on the boat, his face covered by a black hat. Suddenly, a seagull flew over and dropped a roll of newspapers, which happened to fall on the man. Huh? He lazily picked up the newspaper and glanced at it. The next second, the original lazy temperament disappeared instantly, and instead exuded a sharp aura. The fish jumping around felt this aura and quickly dived into the water. Not a single marine creature within 100 meters dared to come out of the sea to breathe under this terrifying aura. Is this a public execution? Logue Town should be in the east direction. The man calmed down and turned the boat around. Without sails and oars, the boat sailed slowly towards the east on its own. After learning the location of Roger's execution, all the pirates in the world went crazy. Countless pirates flocked to East Blue. Their target is the place called Logue Town. Whether it is a famous pirate or a little-known pirate group, they all want to witness that incredible moment with their own eyes. At the same time, South Blue, Battalier Island. Rouge looked at the news in the newspaper, his beautiful face showing unconcealable sadness, and the melancholy atmosphere made the world seem a little more sad. The news on the news made her unable to let go for a long time. Even if you already knew that this would be the result, seeing it with your own eyes would always be painful. She caressed her bulging belly, her sad eyes showing a hint of hope. This is her child and his hope. She must let the child be born smoothly. No matter how sad and painful she is, she can't stop her determination. Suddenly, a leisurely voice came from behind Rouge. Roger's wife, Porcas de Rouge, and his unborn son, are they named Ace? Chapter 139. I have no interest in extending the butcher knife to the weak, please customize. Advertisement. Before meeting Roger, Chen ordered Karaku to drive to South Blue's ship, which had already left the mark of Flying Thunder God. Therefore, after he finished talking to Roger, he came to the town where Rouge was located in an instant. Hearing the sudden voice from behind, Rouge was stunned for a moment, and then a sense of helpless fear grew in his heart. Is it impossible to escape Marine's pursuit after all? Rouge thought in his heart. Don't be nervous, I have no interest in reaching out to the weak, Chen explained. Hearing this, Rouge felt a little relieved. The other party must not bother to lie to her at this time. She turned around and found a very young Marine in front of her. However, she recognized in the next second that the other person was the legendary Marine who captured her husband Roger. Monkey D. Chen, I know you, Rouge said. The first time I saw the legendary Marine, I didn't expect that it would be in such a situation. At this moment, she couldn't describe her mood, it was an extremely complicated emotion. What's your purpose here? Rouge asked. There is just one thing that requires Miss Rouge's cooperation, Chen smiled. Cooperate? Rouge looked at the other party in surprise. Now that Chen can find himself and knows that the fetus in his belly is of Roger's blood. From his position, he would definitely not let him go. But the other party told her to cooperate with him, which she couldn't understand. She didn't understand what the Marine in front of her was thinking. Do you think I will believe you, Chen Vice Admiral? Rouge looked at Chen warily. Since you already know whose blood I am carrying, how could you let it go? Even if you wouldn't embarrass me, how could the world government allow his child to be born smoothly? Rouge asked. Haha, I know you won't believe me easily, but in my opinion, whether it's a Marine or a pirate, what does the evildoer have to do with the unborn child? I also have a few little guys around me, all of whom are pirates. Even a Marine would be shocked by their origins. Of course, they are all pretty good now, at least they can be considered very outstanding Marines, Chen said lightly. Rouge still didn't let down her guard. Even if the opponent was the legendary Marine, she wouldn't just surrender.
You should know that if I attack you, no one can stop me.
But I don't want to do that yet, at least until you decide to resist. I don't have such plans yet, Chen said.
Rouge knew that Chen was telling the truth. Facing this man, even his own husband and the countless powerful pirates around him could only run away.
Advertisement, okay, what do you need me to do? Rouge asked helplessly. Regardless of whether what Chen said was true or not, he had no choice.
What do you need me to do? You don't need to know. It won't take long before you understand, Chen said.
Before Rouge could react, Lu Chen had already disappeared in front of her. Looking at the empty room in front of him, Rouge felt as if he was in a dream. She quickly opened the door, but Lu Chen could not be seen on the street, as if the Marine Vice Admiral had really disappeared out of thin air. Such unbelievable methods made her feel even more frightened. After leaving Battle Island, Lu Chen did not return to Marine headquarters, but returned to Ohara. He hasn't been home for some time since his mission to conquer Wano Kuni. As soon as I entered the door, I saw Little Robin lying on the floor, playing with toys seriously. Hearing the sound, Little Robin turned around and saw Lu Chen, shouted and rushed towards Lu Chen's thigh. Dad, Little Robin, have you listened to your mother? Lu Chen picked up her daughter and nodded the little girl's face with a smile. Yes, Little Robin is very obedient. Little Robin raised his head and said in a sweet voice. Then, she suddenly became serious, hugging Lu Chen's neck mysteriously, and said seriously, Dad, Little Robin, can do magic. Magic. Lu Chen frowned slightly. For some reason, an ominous premonition appeared in his heart. Just the next moment, Little Robin closed her eyes in his arms, folded her hands, and shouted, Come out. The words fell. Lu Chen then noticed that two chubby little hands suddenly appeared on the clothes around his waist, constantly scratching him. This, flower fruit ability? Advertisement? At this time, Albia also heard the movement in the living room, came out of the kitchen, and saw this scene. Her cheeks instantly turned red, and she said out of breath, This girl stole that fruit. Please give me flowers. 0. Robin was hungry and ate guoguo, and his mother was angry. It tasted terrible. Lu Chen hugged Robin and froze on the spot. It took a long time to slowly digest the news, and I couldn't help but feel dumbfounded. In the following days, Lu Chen stayed on Ohara Island. Wano Kuni has a few Sakazukis, so there is no need to worry. As for Roger, let Kong take care of it. Anyway, he has handed Roger over to the headquarters, and they will let them do the rest. The tavern on a certain street in Logue Town, a tavern that is usually relatively quiet, is now very lively. Time flies so fast, September has arrived in the blink of an eye, and Roger's execution day is getting closer. Lu Chen also returned to the headquarters and followed the headquarters warship to Logue Town. However, under the perception of observation hockey, Lu Chen knew that the island today was far from as simple as it seemed. Among them, there are a few smells that are very familiar. This also led to frequent conflicts between pirates, and naturally some bloodshed was inevitable. The arrival of these pirates made the originally peaceful town become lively in an instant. This town looks very ordinary, with no tall buildings or too busy streets, just like an ordinary town that can be seen everywhere. Needless to say, the reasons are all for Roger, the Pirate King. But without exception, these people are pirates gathered from all over the world. These pirates usually run rampant and are quite famous in their respective sea areas. Especially the pirates on the Grand Line did not take the pirates from other seas seriously. More than a dozen tables were filled with people, many of whom were unfamiliar faces. They were not local residents of the town, but pirates who had just arrived here in recent days. 0. There are many strange faces coming and going on the streets, and these people all carry weapons. Some face menace, some are tall and mighty, and some look harmless, just like ordinary people. When the public execution day comes, he can enjoy a rare holiday comfortably. In fact, Logue Town is much more lively these days than before. He clearly sensed that there were many powerful auras lingering in the town. Fortunately, they also knew that the place was heavily guarded by Marines and there was no big fuss. Chapter 140. Who is the real king in the new era? Please customize. Advertisement. Hey, Roger is about to be executed. This era has come to an end. Then, next, will be my red-bearded era.
A strong man with red curly hair and a beard sitting at the bar slammed the wine glass onto the table with a dull thud. In an instant, the guests in the bar turned their heads and looked at each other with different expressions. Among them, a young man with black hair glanced at him lightly. His eyes were as sharp as an eagle's. Snapped. Putting down some Baileys, the young man with short black hair picked up the courtesy and sword on the table, stood up and left. The noise in the tavern behind him seemed out of place. Blah blah blah. Suddenly, drizzle began to fall in the sky of Logue Town. As far as the eye can see, the sky and the earth are hazy. Pedestrians on the street immediately ran to avoid the rain. The bustling town streets of 490 suddenly became deserted. However, there were a few weird people walking through the street swaying in the drizzle. Hey, after Roger is executed, the next era will belong to our young master. Torbal, who was bloated and fat, shook his nose and said confidently, Dover, you have to remember, you are the only one in this sea who was born to be a king. Hearing this, Virgo, Diamante and others next to them all turned their heads to look over. Doflamingo, who is still young now, has a sullen face, and his eyes behind his sunglasses are looking at the square at the end of the street. There was an execution platform standing. At this moment, there are heavy soldiers guarding the entire square, and the entire Logue Town is almost airtight. Execution is imminent. The glory that represents an era is about to come to an end in the eyes of the world. Nagging. If the marine hero is still there, then this sea will not have a real king. At this time, Doflamingo suddenly lowered his head and laughed wildly, but, I'm still young. Yes, the young master is still young. One day, he will be able to stand on the throne. The young Naraku clenched her little fists and waved. Her long, grass green, wavy hair highlighted the girl's graceful figure. Although she was young, she was already slim. The other members of the Don Quixote family all said complimentary words. Advertisement. In their minds, Doflamingo is already the real king. Inside the dark alley, there are many Marines nearby. Are they trying to arrest us? The red-nosed buggy was shivering, grabbing Shank's clothes with both hands, sweating. Idiot, do you think we are the only pirates in Logue Town? Standing at the entrance of the alley, Shanks raised his hand and pressed his straw hat, looked cautiously towards the street outside, and said without looking back, "These Marines are here to maintain order. As long as they don't cause trouble, they will not talk to the pirates." Why? Buggy asked with wide eyes and confusion. Haha, because Marine publicly executed Captain Roger to scare the pirates. Damn it, but no matter what, I want to witness the final end of Captain Roger. Uncle Rayleigh and the others have gone into seclusion. From now on, we will have no companions. Shanks and Buggy walked out of the alley and disappeared into the crowd. Coast direction. A seemingly ordinary merchant ship avoided Marine without leaving a trace and slowly approached the coast. Several figures hidden in cloaks walked out of the cabin and headed straight towards Logue Town. Roger's arrest seems to be unstoppable. Countless pirates are eager to go to sea. Walking in the busy street, Bartholomew Kuma glanced at the pirates who thought they were well disguised, and said expressionlessly, "These pirates are all here for the Pirate King. The purpose is self-evident. The emergence of a large number of new pirates can contain many Marine forces. For us revolutionaries, that is the best opportunity to grow." Long lowered his head, his eyes slightly lowered, the tattoo on his side was still eye-catching, and he smiled. However, no matter how great your dream is, you can't deny the harm that pirates do to ordinary people. Countless families have been destroyed and people have died because of pirates. If Marine is light, then pirates are darkness. Darkness may be hidden under light, but it is extremely rare for light to appear in darkness. The Revolutionary Army hates corruption, but cannot deny justice. I came here just to witness what kind of impact the end of the Pirate King will have on this sea. Having said this, Long paused slightly, then raised his head, looking at the execution platform standing on the square at the end of the street. Advertisement. No matter what happens in the future, revolution will continue until it overthrows decay and builds the world of dreams. Hear this. The faces of the Big Bear and the Demon King who followed the dragon changed dramatically, and their eyes revealed deep thoughts. This leader of the Revolutionary Army has increasingly possessed the temperament of a leader. And this is the reason why everyone is willing to follow the dragon. At this time, Marine branch in Logue Town. Sengoku and Zephyr guarded Roger's prison, and brought 12 vice admirals with them. It can be said that this execution had extremely high standards. Of the 3 admirals, only Garp did not come. While everyone is busy with tomorrow's public execution, among Marine, only Chen is probably the most leisurely. Don't bother him for trivial matters. Big things, too, are handled by Sengoku and Zephyr. At the same time, as the legendary vice admiral with extremely high status and seniority in Marine, naturally no one would disturb him at will. Tomorrow, we will be here to watch the execution. At this time, Chen took Momosuke and Yamato to the other side of the square. Opposite the towering execution platform, the floor is built in a medieval European style. In the magnificent lobby, standing in front of the window at 4.3, you can clearly see the location of the execution platform opposite the square. "Uncle, why are you watching here?" Yamato asked curiously, raising his head. During this time, under Momosuke's guidance, she has learned how powerful Marine is. As Marine's legendary hero Chen, it's not a big deal to watch it live, so why bother going to the building opposite the execution platform? Moreover, this strange behavior has not been informed to other Marines. Only these 2 girls know. Even Momosuke is curious. Because I want to invite a guest who is very important to Roger. The corners of Chen's mouth raised slightly, revealing a warm smile. Important guest. Chapter 141. Wife, children and dreams, choose one of the 2, please customize. Advertisement. A new day. The darkness before dawn was pierced by the morning light, and the morning glow fell on the earth, dispelling the darkness. The quiet Logue Town also gradually became prosperous at this moment. Countless people took to the streets consciously. Go straight towards the square. Whether from all over the world, New World, or other places. It doesn't matter who the visitor's identity is. Ordinary people, pirates, spies, gangs, underground forces, or the Revolutionary Army. At this time, they are all spectators. This public execution is closely related to everyone in this world. No one is exempt. Therefore, it also attracts people from all over the world to watch. Even if you don't have the ability to come to Logue Town in person. However, I will also watch this execution live on the big screen in my hometown. It can be said, the world government attaches great importance to this matter, which is unprecedented. Hey, are we about to start? One Piece Roger, the man who has everything in the world, is finally about to be executed by Marine. Damn pirates, during this period, the people who went to sea because of Roger were enough to throw order into chaos. Execute him to scare the pirates. Haha, what nonsense is the Pirate King? Isn't he also arrested by Marine now? 27 inches. People from all over the country cheered for it. Even though the execution has not started yet, many people have prepared wine and banquets, waiting for the execution to end and celebrate. There are not a few people who have this idea. Even fellow pirates are waiting for the Pirate King to be executed. Because this represents the end of an era. The chaotic sea is a good opportunity for those with strength and ambition. And at this time, South Blue, Badelira Island, squeak. In the courtyard filled with flowers and plants, the door of the house suddenly opened. Rouge, who was bloated, came out neatly dressed. When passing by the yard, she suddenly stopped, then bent down her bulging waist and picked a blooming flower. The long golden hair is dotted with a colorful red flower, which looks unique. After walking out of the yard, Jung headed straight towards the coast. Not long after, in her sight, she saw a figure standing there with his back to her. The word justice on the cloak flutters in the sea breeze, full of solemn and sacred momentum. I didn't expect that you, a weak woman, could face death so calmly. No wonder Roger, half dead, would find you in the huge crowd. Chen turned around, looked at the approaching pregnant woman, and said politely. Advertisement. Of course, it would be rude to say that you are a weak woman, but that's all in front of me. It doesn't matter, even he was defeated in front of you, let alone a weak woman like me. Rouge smiled and shook his head. It seems to be showing weakness, but in fact it is full of courage to be strong as a mother. Then you have to be mentally prepared. What you will face later will be very cruel. Chen said calmly, but couldn't help but remind him. I'm ready, no matter the outcome, I will always have to face it. Rouge nodded, his tone firm. To this, Chen nodded and then raised his hand. The space suddenly vibrated. Next moment, the figures of the two people completely disappeared from the place. When it appears again, already standing in a magnificent hall. Rouge Bird Madara's face looked surprised. Before she could look around, a clear shout came from next to her. The execution is about to begin. I saw Yamato lying on the window, pointing to the square in the distance and exclaimed. The next moment, she seemed to notice something and couldn't help but look back. When he saw Rouge suddenly appearing, his mouth opened wide and his whole body went cold. Chen Vice Admiral, this is. Momosuke also looked over, his beautiful eyes filled with shock. Guest. Chen answered simply and came to the floor-to-ceiling window. Guest. Hear this. Momosuke and Yamato immediately looked towards Rouge. The bulging belly is really too obvious. Yamato was just curious and confused. But Momosuke's pretty face suddenly changed again and again as if he had guessed something. Roger. However, Rouge ignored the two of them and walked to the window, staring intently at the execution platform standing across the square. Accompanied by two military policemen, Roger walked step by step towards the execution platform in shackles. This process. The square was originally bustling with noise and discussion, but it suddenly became quiet. The crowded square and the streets of Logue Town all became deathly silent. You can hear the needle drop. Only the sound of everyone's rapid breathing came and went. Dang rang 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 rang. With every step Roger took, the shackles in his hands made a crisp sound when they collided. At this time, advertisement. Marine is on alert. Sengoku and Zephyr, one on the left and one on the right, were hidden under the execution platform, surrounded by Marine elite guards. A guarded, blind guy. Or, on guard, members of the Roger Pirates. What a depressing atmosphere. Feeling the oppressive air in the sky of Logue Town, Sengoku clenched his fists and stared around the square warily. Although there is no intelligence that Roger's friends have come to East Blue, we still need to be cautious as a precaution. Zephyr said in a deep voice. But they obviously thought too much. Except for the sea breeze blowing in and the people standing everywhere like sculptures. No one even moved a little bit. Until Roger stepped onto the execution platform and knelt down. This oppressive atmosphere has only relaxed a little bit. Captain Shanks, who was hiding in the crowd, pressed his straw hat tightly with both hands, and couldn't help but start to shed tears. Buggy was also crying beside him. In the entire Roger Pirates, they were the only two interns to come. This is not heartless. Rather, everyone knows that this is the captain's choice. As this the Pirate King, he can face death with a smile. The man who has everything in the world is about to face execution. When you reach the final island, what exactly is there? Completed the feat of circling the world. Whether at the scene or around the world, countless people are talking about it. And as a party, hey. Sensing the oppressive atmosphere in the square, Roger knelt on the ground and raised a confident smile on his lips. There is absolutely no fear of imminent execution. But just the next moment, Roger's curly beard twitched. Having a very strong observation hockey, he immediately noticed that there was a familiar and friendly atmosphere on this island. Just opposite. In an instant, Roger raised his head suddenly and his eyes immediately locked onto the building across the square. A figure in one of the floor-to-ceiling windows was clearly imprinted in his sight. Quote. Roger's pupils suddenly shrank. The confident smile on his face solidified in an instant. Deep in my heart, there were waves of fear and good intentions. At this time, he suddenly remembered what Chen said to him in Impel Down. Wife, children and dreams, choose one. Chapter 142. Shocking the world, the Pirate King cries in despair, please customize. Advertisement. Rouge stood near the window sill. Her robe could not hide her growing belly. The little life inside was cheering to grow up every moment. Roger. Sensing Roger's gaze and looking over, Rouge's Madara's cheeks showed waves of tenderness. She raised her palm and stamped it on the window. It seems that I can caress the vicissitudes of face from a long distance away. As gentle as ever. However, anyone who knows this woman knows that beneath her gentle appearance is a strong attitude. Being a mother is strong, this is human nature. When Chen next to him saw this, he couldn't help but sigh. Although Momoshiki and Yamato looked confused, they could still figure out what was going on. Because, on the execution platform across the square, Pirate King Roger, who originally wore a confident and chic smile, turned extremely ugly at this moment. The smile froze, gradually turning into anger, and finally sadness. Ah! Roger suddenly roared to the sky, emitting endless anger and despair. The next moment, he suddenly stood up, his terrifying momentum, like the boundless sea, sweeping in all directions, impacting the hearts of everyone in Logue Town. This sudden change frightened everyone. Not to mention, the terrifying conqueror's haki came down and shocked everyone's hearts. On the marine side, Sengoku and Zephyr were the first to react. Roger. Sengoku jumped onto the execution platform, glared at the frantic Roger, and pressed one hand directly on Roger's shoulder to prevent him from rushing out. It has to be said that even he was caught off guard by this turn of events. To know, for a physical expert like Roger, ordinary shackles can't block the opponent at all. Even so, it's Seastone's shackles. If you struggle desperately, you can still do it and exert considerable strength. And this is also the reason why the two admirals appear here. Boom. Immediately afterwards, Zephyr also rushed to the execution platform, pressing a hand on Roger's shoulder. It's useless even if you regret it now. The two admirals, one on the left and one on the right, suppressed Roger forcefully so that he would not escape from the execution. Boom. The next moment, Roger knelt on the ground and roared like a beast. The terrifying momentum shocked the square and the people watching the live broadcast. No one knows why, but everyone present could really feel the despair and anger. Advertisement. Captain. Damn it, what should we do now? Do we want to fight? Shanks and Buggy, who were hiding in the crowd, couldn't help but feel anxious and angry when they saw Roger suddenly going crazy. After following Captain Roger for many years, this was the first time they had seen this state. Therefore, besides being confused, there is more anger. It was obvious that the captain was in some despair. Nagging, nagging, nagging. It's really interesting. The Pirate King who thought he could face death calmly suddenly went crazy and wanted to struggle to escape. What was the reason for his confident smile just now? Standing in the center of the Don Quixote family, Doflamingo shook his head and laughed. He felt very disappointed and sorry for the Pirate King's gaffe at this moment. As this emotion despair, the young man with short black hair, carrying a long sword on his back, looked over with sharp eyes and frowned. For some reason, he always felt that this abnormal posture should not appear on this man. Obviously, there is something unknown. This Pirate King fell into despair. However, nothing else seemed to happen in the execution square. So it seems very strange and puzzling. In the field, only the dragon, who was covered in robes, seemed to be aware of it and turned his head to look at the window of the house behind him. The next moment, his pupils suddenly shrank. It's Uncle. Lu Chen's figure came into his eyes instantly. Then, he saw the pregnant woman with a big belly next to Lu Chen. Could it be? The bottom of Long's heart was shaken, and there was a terrifying hint of speculation. I have to say that this guess is too scary. Even the leader of the Revolutionary Army was deeply shocked. Only in this way can we explain why Roger, who calmly went to his death, was so rude. No, Uncle, what do you mean by this? Soon, Long denied his thoughts. Based on his understanding of Lu Chen, even if the other party was Roger's pregnant wife, Uncle Lu Chen wouldn't do anything. There is no need to threaten a dying person with a weak person. This is not Lu Chen's style. Hey, what's wrong with this guy? Is he crying? One Piece, are you crying? Could the confident and unrestrained smile just now be fake? Faced with death, he still cried out of fear. Luckily there are two admirals, otherwise there would have been trouble. Advertisement. Hurry up and execute him, the time is coming. People watching the live broadcast from all over the world started talking about it. The execution time is coming soon. Lu Chen stood in front of the floor-to-ceiling window, watching the farce on the execution platform, and his mind became increasingly calm. After all, he had already anticipated Roger's reaction. But soon, Roger, who was going crazy on the execution platform, suddenly calmed down. Sengoku and Zephyr were pressing his shoulders on his left and right, and he was kneeling on the ground, tears streaming down his face, crying in pain. Tears dripped down the execution platform, splashing countless teardrops. Quote. The execution time is coming soon, pace setter. Sengoku noticed Roger's change in mood and turned to shout at the military policeman. Roger, face death peacefully. Zephyr slowly let go of Roger's shoulder, looking extremely alert and solemn. Accept the fate of being a pirate. Sengoku also said. Roger didn't speak. Tears were still flowing down his face, but he didn't struggle or raise his head again, as if he didn't dare to look at anything. The military policeman who was stunned by conquerors just now was dragged down. The backup military police, armed with long guns, stepped onto the execution platform and stood behind Roger. Sengoku and Zephyr clenched their fists, looking down at Roger, their minds focused on Roger, ready to take action at any time to suppress the crazed Pirate King. Prepare for execution, accompanied by Marine Admiral's orders. The two military policemen standing on the left and right immediately raised their spears. The sharp tip of the gun was aimed at Roger's back. Just wait for Sengoku's order. The promise is good, the spear will fall and take away the life of the Pirate King. Wootens. Ha 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 ha. About to face death, Roger suffered until the end and suddenly burst into laughter. He slowly raised his head, and the expression on his face was both crying and crying, making people wonder whether he was laughing or crying at this time. This scene, to everyone's surprise, especially Shanks and Buggy, who knew Roger well, were even more shocked. They have never seen such a strange situation like the captain. One can imagine. At this time, Roger was under tremendous pressure. But just when everyone was surprised, just when the military policeman behind him was about to lower his spear, Roger, with tears streaming down his face, grinned, and with his last breath before his life withered, he headed towards Logue Town. Send your last cry to the whole world. Chapter 143. Roger's Declaration, Rouge's Decision. Please customize. Advertisement. Do you want my treasure? If you want it, I can give it all to you. Just go find it. I'll put everything there. This cry resounded throughout the world. People from all over the world who watched the live broadcast were stunned after hearing this. On the square, everyone from all over the world was stunned. Even Shanks and Buggy stopped crying and looked up at Roger on the execution platform, with astonishment on their faces. No one thought, Roger will shout this sentence at this time. For a while, both the square in Logue Town and the people watching the live broadcast from all over the world fell silent instantly. Sengoku was the first to react, his face changed drastically, and he immediately shouted, "Execution." The words have not yet finished. The two military policemen on the left and right instinctively thrust out their spears, instantly piercing Roger's body and nailing him to the execution platform. But unfortunately, it's still too late. Before Roger died, he shouted those words. It proves the existence of the ultimate island and also proves the existence of the secret treasure. Countless people were shocked and dumbfounded. After a while, cheers erupted like an overwhelming wave from inside and outside the square, and from all over the world. People rushed to tell each other. The great secret treasure exists. People who have an adventurous spirit and want to go to sea to find treasures can't wait for a moment and are eager to go to sea. The number of pirates increased exponentially overnight. Of course, this is something. Logue Town Square at this time. Along with the cheers of countless people, Marine, who was strictly guarding everywhere, turned into a transparent existence. Sengoku and Zephyr stood stunned on the execution platform. His face looked ugly as never before. This moment. No matter what happened to Roger's death, the impact of these words he said before his death will give Marine a headache for a long time to come. As long as the existence of the great secret treasure is found, whoever it is will be the next pirate king. Logue Town, in the cheering atmosphere, I don't know who shouted this. In an instant, the noisy atmosphere cooled down. Countless cheering people looked at each other. But this atmosphere led to even more enthusiastic cheers in less than 3 seconds. Advertisement. Ha ha ha, yes, the person who finds the great secret treasure will be the next pirate king. Roger's era is over. Next, it's our era. Go ahead, find the great secret treasure and become the pirate king. One Piece, yes, to become the pirate king, this is the real purpose of my going to sea. Quote. I didn't know why I went to sea before, but now, I understand. Find the great secret treasure, inherit everything from Roger, and become the new pirate king. This is our goal as pirates. Countless people cheered excitedly for this. La 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 la, can you become the pirate king if you find the big secret treasure? That's really a good idea. Brother Ming glanced at the crazy people in the square with his sunglasses on, a wild smile on his lips, then put his trouser pockets in his pockets, turned around and walked out of the square. Little Lord, Monet, Virgo and others followed suit. And the corner on the other side. Buggy, do you want to come with me? Shanks extended an invitation to Buggy, but was rejected. Whoever wants to go to sea with you, please don't let me see you again. Being with you is really unlucky. There were tears on both of their faces as they watched Captain Roger fall on the execution platform. The last trace of obsession in my heart disappeared at this moment. The existence of the great secret treasure attracted people to rush to the sea. As a former crew member of the Pirate King, naturally he would not just watch. After all, neither of them made it to the end due to accidents. This is a new round of pirate competition. The one who finds the great secret treasure will be the next Pirate King. So where is my future? Mihawk frowned, looking out of tune with the crazy people around him. After thinking for a while, he turned around and left with the long knife on his back. The other side, the expressions of several figures shrouded in cloaks became solemn and ugly. Before you die, do you want to turn this world upside down? Long thought to himself, then looked back at the windows of the house behind him, then shook his head and led everyone out of Logue Town. The end of an era represents the rise of new times. This is what everyone in the sea is thinking. Compared to the people below in the officialdom who were caught up in the carnival. In the hall upstairs, there was an eerie silence. Both Momosuke and Yamato opened their mouths with shock and confusion on their faces. Yamato was okay, he just watched the people reveling downstairs and didn't know what happened. And Momosuke immediately thought of how bad Roger's words before his death had been. It can be said, this is Marine's defeat, a total failure. Lost to a dead pirate. Advertisement. No one could have imagined that Roger would say those words before he died in a public execution broadcast live around the world. If they had known about it, I'm afraid the world government would not have publicly executed him. But now, it's too late to regret. Oh, we have indeed started a great voyage. At this time, Chen raised his hand and scratched the back of his head and said to himself with a wry smile. He also didn't expect that Roger, a scumbag, would still be so decisive before he died. Of course, it's okay to think about it. Only. Chen glanced sideways at Rouge, the pregnant woman beside him, and said calmly, "The result may not be satisfactory, but I hope you remember everything that scumbag said." "It doesn't matter. I understand him." Rouge lowered his head, with tears in his beautiful eyes, and said with a forced smile. "Even so. However, even Momoshiki and this girl Yamato can clearly feel it." At this moment, Rouge is like an orphan abandoned by the whole world. For some reason, it made these two girls feel a little sad. "It really doesn't matter." Chen nodded and suddenly smiled. "This kid's name is Ace, right? That was Roger's weapon. The era he started before his death, let Ace end it with his own hands. Use his sword to repay his body. This is Ace's future." Upon hearing this, Rouge was shocked and looked timid. To this, Chen ignored her and continued to laugh. "You can choose to refuse, but I believe the world government will be very happy about it." After finishing speaking, he shook off his cloak of justice, turned around and left. "Watch her carefully." After leaving a word, the person disappeared. Looking at Chen's disappearing back, Momoshiki and others were stunned. After a while, Yamato raised his head and asked Momoshiki, "Sister, what do you mean by what Uncle Chen said? Also, who is Ace?" Momoshiki's forehead is covered with black lines. How did she know? "Ace, he is my child." Rouge next to him spoke at this moment. The tone is full of pride and pride. Since their mother and son have been abandoned by the whole world, let's face the future calmly. Chapter 144. Replacement for Marshal Marine, please customize. Advertisement. Boom. Naval Headquarters, Marshal's office. Kong punched the desk angrily, causing a fist mark to be dented on the desk that had been trained by Marine Marshal Hockey for countless years. One can imagine how angry Marshal Kong was feeling at this moment. As of now, not only has the influence of One Piece not been eliminated, but Roger's words before his death have caused the sea to go berserk in the future. He Vice Admiral sat on the sofa nearby and said with a slight frown. As expected of him, although Garp knew Roger very well, he was still extremely shocked when he heard the news. But soon, he felt embarrassed. Since Roger started the Age of Discovery before his death, the Pirate King's influence in the sea is increasing day by day. Even if the world government knew about Roger's bloodline, you must try your best to deal with it quickly. Garp was very confused. Of course, he didn't know at this time that Roger's care for him had long been cut off by his younger brother. "I just felt that the lifelong enemy whom I recognized in my heart actually turned the sea upside down with just a few words before he died. It was indeed very powerful. The plan of the world government seems to be unstoppable." Marshal Kong said gloomily. Hear the words. Crane, Vice Admiral and Garp could not help but frown. Shichibukai plan. If the influence on One Piece cannot be eliminated in the future, then the world government will definitely launch this plan. The sea is very chaotic now, so our old guy will probably be very busy in the future. Garp seemed to have thought of something and looked a little complicated. He slowly stood up and walked straight out of the office. Behind him, Marshal Kong glanced at him sideways and asked, "Where are you going at this time?" "I'm going to inspect the Seahigh branch. If there are too many new pirates, they will have a hard time without the support of our headquarters." Garp stood at the door and explained in a deep voice. To this, Marshal Kong didn't doubt his presence, nodded, and let Garp leave. "Xiaohei, I leave this department to you. Regarding Roger, I need to go to the Holy Land." Kong felt a headache at the thought of having to be held accountable by the five elders again later. At this time, he wished Chen was here and thought about what he could do. Advertisement. Holy Land, Mariajoy. When Kong arrived, the five elders had been waiting for a long time as usual. The news of Logue Town has already spread all over the world. There is no need for news reports at all, because the world government wants to publicly execute Roger, which is originally for the world. The level of shock cannot be matched by any newspaper news. Did you Marines never think of sealing Roger's mouth before executing him? An old man with a bald head and glasses holding a long sword looked at Kong with a glare, and said in a deep voice, "You have caused such a big mess, how do you think it will end? You don't even know how to end things like this if you ask me." Kong shook his head directly. Now that things have happened, there is no need for everyone to blame each other. No one expected Roger's counterattack before he died. The gray and white curly old man wearing a black hat said in a deep voice. He has arrived at the ultimate island and knows the secrets of this world, so he can't just let it go. Yes, no one has ever reached there in hundreds of years. Now, because of Roger's feat, this sea has become the target of countless people. Several other five elders also said, "You know, before Roger, the pirates in this sea either dominated one area or wanted to conquer the world. Most pirates go to sea without any purpose. At this time, after Roger circled the world, it can be said that people in this world who want to go to sea have found their ultimate goal. Complete a circle around the world and find the big secret treasure left by Roger. You can become the pirate king of the new era." He disappeared for a period of time when he returned from the final destination. Although no trace of him could be found, the CP agency, through various intelligence sources, deduced that Roger seems to have left his blood descendants in this world. The old man with long blonde hair said calmly. As soon as he said this, Kong's face changed, and his eyes showed horror. The bloodline of the Pirate King. Now that things have come to this, the number of pirates will definitely increase day by day. Hai should devote all his strength to finding that glimmer of possibility. Yes, as long as we find Roger's bloodline, his influence can be eliminated. This is the best solution for today. First believe you Marine, there's nothing you can do about this. 5 elders said one after another. The meaning is very simple. It can be deduced from the existing information that Roger may have left his own blood in this world during the period when he disappeared. In other words, there is an unborn child of Roger. Just find this unborn child. Advertisement. I believe that the means of world government can be used to eliminate the impact of Roger's death. And this is what Naval Headquarters needs to do as of top priority. The bloodline of the Pirate King. That should never have appeared in this world. Kong has no objection to this. After all, this is the best way now. Otherwise, wait, sooner or later, Marine's power will be exhausted by the increasing number of pirates. At that time, it would be a shame for the Naval Headquarters for the world government to launch the Shichibukai plan. If there's nothing else, I'll take my leave first. After finishing speaking, Kong said goodbye to the 5 elders. Before he could turn around and leave, one of the 5 elders suddenly spoke and asked, Black Panther is old and it's time to retire. 0. As Marine Marshal, you are the most suitable to inherit the position of Black Panther at this time. However, Marine cannot be shocked. Have you thought about the Marshal's replacement? Kong paused slightly, then grinned. It's best to let him handle this matter personally. Marine hero elected by the world government. Although the current strength is still very weak. How about Lu Chen? At this stage of Naval Headquarters, he and Sengoku are the most suitable, but I am more optimistic about Lu Chen. Although his tone was cold, there was a hint of fear in it. The 5 elders looked at each other and saw the fear in each other's eyes. This new force is very dangerous, but when it comes to the monkey family, I think everyone will be more cautious. However, the reason for the rise of this new force has made the world government feel a slight sense of crisis. And Marine Admiral Garp, as a replacement for the Marshal, it is very reasonable, but we must also carefully examine which side he is on. Hearing Kong's answer, the 5 elders were not surprised, but they were not too upset. Today, their sons and nephews are stirring up trouble all over the world. Until, the back of Marshal Marine disappeared from everyone's sight. We'll think about it. The old man with bald head and glasses slowly picked up a piece of information from the sofa. The 5 elders waved and sent Kong away. Go ahead and settle the matter of Roger's bloodline first. Inch. Chapter 145. The worst bloodline, Whitebeard's promise, please customize. Advertisement. No matter what kind of remedy the world government or naval headquarters want to make for this. After Roger's death, the age of discovery finally arrived. Moreover, it was the declaration made by this pirate king to choose among his wife and children. Have to say, when the execution is over, all over the world, men with so-called dreams are flocking to the world. Among them, some even abandoned their wives and children. Just to find the great secret treasure that exists at the end of the world. New World. A whale pirate ship floating in the vast sea. At this moment, Zetong was completely silent. Everyone's eyes fell on the big screen that was set up. A public execution for the world. It attracted the attention of everyone in the world, including the Whitebeard Pirates. Watch the whole process. Everything on Moby DK is quiet and ultimate. Until 497, when the execution was completely over, everyone was still in a trance. The look of the burly man sitting on the throne changed many times, until finally hearing Roger's declaration, the solemn look on his face gradually turned into a look of relief. This is the joy I feel in realizing my lifelong enemy's dream. Gu la la la. Roger's era is over, bring Laozi some wine to celebrate. After the live broadcast was turned off, Whitebeard grinned and said to the hall full of filial sons and grandsons. Hearing this, Marco and others woke up one after another. Ha ha ha, Roger is finally dead, and our father's era will come next. It's worth celebrating, you'll never get home until you're drunk. This formidable opponent is finally dead. From now on, this sea will only belong to our Whitebeard Pirates. Dad is about to become the king of the new era. Several division captains were very excited. But compared to the high mood of everyone, the lonely little figure squatting under the side of the boat looked deserted and pitiful. Peach. Whitebeard glanced over and shouted. Ah, Uncle Bye. Advertisement. Momonosuke looked up in confusion. There is no news about Odin from Marine or world government. It seems that your father has not fallen into Marine's hands yet. Whitebeard said in a deep voice. So what you need to do now is to cheer up. Otherwise, when we meet Odin in the future, this guy will complain that Laozi didn't take good care of you. Whitebeard smiled confidently. That's right, little Laozi, believe your father, he is the most powerful warrior. Marco came to Momonosuke and directly carried him with one hand to Whitebeard. But my father has been seriously injured. Even if he escapes, where can he escape? Momonosuke said with tears in his eyes. If he is caught by Marine, wouldn't he have to follow Uncle Roger's path? After he finished speaking, the guy burst into tears. The originally exciting atmosphere was ruined by Momonosuke crying. Although everyone on the boat wanted to be comforted. But for a while, I didn't know how to comfort him. After all, he was still a child, and everyone felt a headache. Whitebeard also had a headache. He had never been afraid of the pirates, fighting, but comforting a brat like this was even more uncomfortable than fighting Marine. Okay, no matter what happens to Odin, as long as there is news about him, I will take you to find him. Whitebeard waved his hand and said in a deep voice. But, Marine, Momonosuke still wanted to cry, but Whitebeard interrupted him directly and continued, even if he is captured by Marine, I will take you to rescue him. Real, of course, but before that, you'd better become stronger. As long as you become strong, you don't need to be afraid of anyone. Well, thank you Uncle Bai, I will definitely work hard to practice. After receiving Whitebeard's promise, Momonosuke quickly stood up and shouted with clenched fists. Seeing the appearance of this little devil, everyone on the boat burst into laughter. East Blue, Logue Town Marine Branch. After executing Roger, there was no joy in Marine's appearance, and everyone had a gloomy look on their face. The same goes for Sengoku and Zephyr. The air pressure is very low throughout the Marine Branch. It wasn't until the appearance of Lu Chen that the low pressure eased slightly. But no matter what everyone thinks, after Roger is executed, this huge marine force will immediately leave and return to naval headquarters to resume their duties. Ever since. Advertisement. Under the leadership of two admirals, Sengoku and Zephyr, Marine left Logue Town in a mighty manner. Of course, Logue Town is the last town in East Blue to enter the Grand Line. Marine naturally attaches great importance to this. Therefore, some of the headquarters' strength was left to continue to maintain order. The rest of the large force, including Lu Chen, returned at full speed. But Marine's fleet had just crossed the upside-down mountain when Marineford called. This was a phone call from Marshal Kong himself, in the general command cabin on the warship. The two admirals Sengoku and Zephyr, as well as vice admirals such as Lu Chen, are all here. According to intelligence from the world government, it is speculated that before Roger died, he left behind a descendant of his own blood. As soon as he opened his mouth, everyone present was shocked beyond measure. The entire command cabin fell into dead silence in an instant. Everyone was stunned, with horror on their faces. Have to say, this news can be said to make Marine feel even more uncomfortable than Roger's words before his death. Yes, the world government has ordered all CP organizations to go out to investigate, and I believe there will be results soon. Sengoku heard something about it and asked immediately. Lu Chen, who had been sitting quietly in the corner, suddenly spoke quietly. The phone bug transformed into the heavy look of Marshal Kong and said, before this, we Marine must prepare as soon as possible. Mr. Kong, do you need our fleet to dispatch? As soon as this statement came out. Damn it, I knew this man wouldn't accept death so easily. Sengoku clenched his fists and said coldly. So it is very possible that the most evil bloodline is within the 2C areas. I suspect that Roger left behind his own bloodline before he died. Judging by the time, he should have been born soon, right? If you are looking for Roger's wife and children, then there is no need to go to so much trouble. The noisy command cabin suddenly became quiet. The other vice admirals were all shocked. According to all the intelligence on 4.6, before Roger went to Wanokuni, he had appeared in South Blue and North Blue. However, before Marshal Kong on the other side of the phone answered, a faint voice from the command cabin interrupted everyone's discussion. After hearing Marshal Kong's words, everyone couldn't help but feel shocked. Zephyr gasped. As expected, a person who can become the Pirate King will not die so easily. Chapter 146. Roger's wife and children are here with me. Please customize. Advertisement. Naval Headquarters. Marshal's office. As soon as Kong returned from the Holy Land, he immediately contacted Sengoku and others who had returned from Logue Town. To know. In order to prepare for the public execution of Roger, Marine sent most of its forces there, almost draining the high-end combat power of the headquarters. So, the task of finding the whereabouts of Roger's wife and children can only fall on the returning Marine. But I never expected it. If you are looking for Roger's wife and children, then there is no need to go to so much trouble. Lu Chen's voice suddenly came from the phone bug. The tone was very indifferent, as if it was an insignificant matter. But everyone who knows him knows it. Since he said these words, he must know something. For a while, Kong suddenly opened his eyes wide, stared at the phone bug, and his breathing became rapid. Could it be? Did this guy already know this? As soon as I thought about this, I couldn't help but feel a strong sense of expectation in my heart. Lu Chen, what do you mean by this? Did you already know that Roger left his bloodline? Actually, let alone Kong. Inside the command cabin of a sailing warship. 27 When Lu Chen's words sounded. The people who were originally talking about each other fell silent in an instant. Next moment, everyone couldn't help but turn their heads and focus their gazes. Even Sengoku and Zephyr turned their heads and looked in the direction of Lu Chen with shock on their faces. Brother Lu Chen, are you sure you don't need to bother? Sengoku asked with his eyes widened. If the bloodline of the Pirate King is not found, there will be endless troubles in the future. Zephyr looked at Lu Chen who looked indifferent and said in a deep voice, however, the child is innocent, but the world government will not let it go. Hearing this, everyone nodded. Searching for Roger's bloodline is actually to destroy it. But before destroying it, the world government will maximize its use value and even eliminate the impact of Roger's words before his death. It can be said, what this concerns is the future of this sea. Roger's wife and children are right here with me. Feeling the burning gazes of everyone, Lu Chen said with a bright smile. Oh, I got it. Advertisement. The phone bug transformed into Kong, and after hearing Lu Chen's words, he blurted out an answer. Sengoku, Zephyr and others in the cabin could not help but nod. But the next second, the air suddenly became quiet. Sengoku and others were stiff and petrified on the spot. The phone bug Kong looks like his mouth gradually grows, his eyes become horrified, but he can't say a word. It took a while for everyone to react. Sengoku and Zephyr immediately rushed to Lu Chen's side, their eyes almost bulging out. Hey, this is not a joke, right? Sengoku looked in disbelief. Brother Lu Chen, do you know that Roger's bloodline is related to the peace of this sea? Zephyr's voice trembled. The one who felt the most uncomfortable was Kong. The phone bug looks quite impatient and bitter. It seemed that he wanted to come to the scene and ask clearly what was going on. Lu Chen, please speak clearly. Kong shouted from the other side of the phone bug. To this, Lu Chen, who was sitting in the corner, smiled leisurely. Seeing that Sengoku and Zephyr were impatient, they said calmly, actually, it's nothing. I just happened to find Roger's wife and children. As for Roger's bloodline, they haven't been born yet. But it looks like it's going to be on my boat soon. Hiss. Although there were many speculations in their hearts, everyone couldn't help but take a breath after hearing Lu Chen's words. Sengoku and Zephyr both stared at Lu Chen with wide eyes and disbelief. The other Vice Admiral Rear Admiral is full of awe and admiration. Come back first and then talk. At this time, Kong reacted and yelled quickly. He didn't know why Lu Chen found Roger's wife and children, but he knew Lu Chen. Since he found Lu Chen earlier than world government, there must be a reason. Therefore, go back to the headquarters as soon as possible and explain clearly to avoid misunderstanding by the world government. This is the most important. Okay, then let's go back at full speed, it shouldn't take a few days. Sengoku responded. After hanging up the phone, he immediately ordered the fleet to move forward at full speed. After all, Roger's wife and children are completely safe only if they enter the naval headquarters. As for what to do next, let's talk about it later. Anyway, now, we must rush back to naval headquarters immediately, because this may be related to the impact of the sea in the future. Lu Chen, what are you going to do? When everyone dispersed, Sengoku suddenly raised his head, looked at Lu Chen's leaving figure and asked. Advertisement. Zephyr next to him was slightly startled. Immediately, he looked at Lu Chen's back, waiting for his answer. To know, the existence of Roger's wife and children, and the future outcome, will all be related to the future of the sea. Therefore, both naval headquarters and world government attach great importance to this. As a Marine Admiral, I naturally want to hear Lu Chen's opinion. After all, Lu Chen found everyone. Aha, what else can be done? Since Roger started the great voyage before his death, this era will naturally be ended by his children. Lu Chen paused, raised his hand and scratched the back of his head, and smiled without looking back. Well, that's it. After saying that, he walked away directly. Sengoku and Zephyr, however, looked at each other and saw the surprise in each other's eyes. Lu Chen's words took on a different flavor when the two of them heard them. To end the age of discovery that Roger started, is it going to happen again, with public executions all over the world? Sengoku said in a deep voice. But isn't it too cruel to treat a pregnant woman and her unborn child? Zephyr frowned and said, is there no other way? 117. Yes, the method the two of them had in mind was to publicly execute Roger's Kasumi again. Only in this way can the impact of Roger's death be resolved to the greatest extent. Certainly, Lu Chen naturally didn't know why these two guys had such dark thoughts. That's what he thought. Nothing can shock the world more than Roger's son becoming a strong pillar of Marine in the future. But that's just his idea. World government, not so kind. The news about Roger's wife and children was not passed on. But it was only circulated within Marine senior management, as well as within world government and celestial dragons. 7 days later, the Marine fleet returned to Marineford. On the dock of the military port, Marshal Kong came to greet him personally. In addition, there were several men and women wearing black suits and ball masks standing aside like cold ice cubes. When he saw Lu Chen stepping off the warship, he immediately went to greet him. Lu Chen, Vice Admiral, we are members of the CPO organization. Under the orders of the Celestial Dragons, we are here to take away Roger's wife and children. One of the tall men took out an administrative order from his suit and spread it directly in front of Lu Chen's eyes. As soon as this statement came out, even Marshal Kong could not help but be stunned. It seems that the other party's purpose of coming is a bit unexpected. Chapter 147. Do the Celestial Dragons want to take them away? Sorry, this is my student, please customize. Advertisement. Why, when did the 5 elders give the order? Marshal Kong was the first to react and looked over with doubt, his eyes becoming extremely unfriendly. To know, he immediately reported the news about the whereabouts of Roger's wife and children to the 5 elders. At the same time, the 5 elders were also informed that Lu Chen had found this, just to avoid using a condescending attitude like now to order a legendary hero whom Marine admired from top to bottom. So Marshal Kong immediately stood up and stood in front of Lu Chen. Sorry, this is not an order from the world government, but from the Celestial Dragons in the Holy Land. The man in black suit said calmly. Celestial Dragons. Hearing this, Marshal Kong, Sengoku and others were all surprised. But the next moment, their faces became extremely ugly. Whether it is naval headquarters or world government, they are actually the organizations under Celestial Dragons that rule the world. The emergence of CPO means that this is the private instruction of Celestial Dragons. And as the gods who rule the world, regardless of world government or naval headquarters, it is actually difficult to refuse orders from Celestial Dragons. Unless the 5 elders, who are also Celestial Dragons, come forward. But after all, it is not certain whether the celestial dragons and 5 elders of the Holy Land will come forward for this. Not to mention, because of Roger's words before his death, the sea became even more chaotic, which the celestial dragons hated deeply. It's normal to take Roger's wife and children away to vent their anger. I reject. But at this moment, Chen looked at the other party and said flatly. Tone, no need to question. Refused. Hear this. These CPOs thought they had heard wrongly. Even Marshal Kong, Sengoku and others could not help but widen their eyes. But, Marshal Kong was the first to react. He didn't wait for the CPO's response and directly added in a deep voice, Roger's wife and children are related to the future stability of this sea. We, Marine, have the right to refuse this order. This is related to the future impact. It is clear. The celestial dragons secretly interfered in marine affairs, which was very difficult for them to deal with, so they had to find the 5 elders to stop it. However, the CPO at this time does not seem to have that much patience. Hearing Chen's direct rejection tone, I couldn't help but feel angry. Mr. Chen, there is no option to refuse the order from celestial dragons. The tall man at the head smiled lightly. Although he was facing Marine's legendary hero, as the licking dog next to celestial dragons, he was naturally not afraid of Marine's pressure. As this so, Chen smiled faintly, then suppressed his smile and said, then let the celestial dragons come over. I'll wait here. Advertisement. As for you, a good dog stays out of the way. The words just fell. Buzz. Before the CPOs could react, Chen's pupils suddenly shrank, and his body released a terrifying conqueror's haki. The aura was as vast as the power of God, and it directly suppressed the CPOs. Suddenly, except for the leading man in black who knelt down on one knee, all the other spies lost consciousness in an instant. Mr. Kong, I found the target. I hope I can handle it myself. After doing all this, Chen turned to the stunned Marshal Kong and said. Ah, then how do you want to deal with it? After Marshal Kong reacted, he was still shocked and couldn't help asking curiously. Nothing. The unborn child should be called Ace. Well, this is my future student. Chen chuckled. The words fell. At the dock and port, countless people's jaws dropped to the ground, almost turning to stone. Chen, that's Roger. Marshal Kong was shocked, his face full of disbelief. So what? Everyone is dead, can it still affect my students? Before Marshal Kong could finish speaking, Chen interrupted him calmly, with confidence flying on his face. My students, regardless of birth, status, or bloodline. But they are all extremely outstanding Marines. Chen said it very lightly. But everyone present who heard it felt extremely shaken. Yes, when they found out that Roger had left a bloodline, everyone's first reaction was not to let this child be born. But Chen is full of confidence. Not only do you want to keep the child, but you also want to take the so-called worst bloodline with you. How confident is this? If you don't know and are familiar with Chen, you will feel the absurdity and surprise in it. However, these bizarre things happen to Chen. Everything seems so natural. To know, the reason why world government and naval headquarters have this idea is that subconsciously, they are very jealous and afraid of Roger. Furthermore, everything about Roger is given special importance. Chen, your idea is crazy, but also very reasonable. Nothing would shock the world more than Roger's child becoming Marine. Marshal Kong said in a deep voice, I will try my best to solve these things for you. After all, if it were anyone else, it would be impossible for Marshal Marine to agree to such a crazy and terrifying idea. But Chen can do it. At this moment, a figure suddenly stepped down from the sci-fi style warship that was exclusive to Chen. It was a pregnant woman. She has long, wavy golden hair, a gentle face, and moderate cheeks, but she cannot conceal her tough character hidden beneath her gentleness. Portkas D. Rouge. Advertisement. She heard everything about the conversation on the dock, but she didn't refute it. Ah, are these Roger's wife and children? She is pregnant with Roger's blood. It's terrible. The most evil bloodline in the world appears in naval headquarters. What will happen if word gets out? Who knows, but it will definitely shock everyone, right? If Chen Vice Admiral hadn't spoken, I'm afraid this woman and the child in her belly would have been executed. Don't be ridiculous, the child who is about to be born now is a student of Chen Vice Admiral. I'm really envious. But a child with the blood of the Pirate King must also be very talented. Seeing Rouge walking down step by step, the soldiers on the dock couldn't help but start talking. Even the 2 admirals, Sengoku and Zephyr, were all attracted to it. Roger's wife. As Marine Marshal, Kong's heart beat faster than ever before. This woman's identity is so special. And the unborn child in her belly. This is of great significance to Marine or the world. You should have heard our conversation just now. Please stay in Marineford from now on. This is where you and Ace will be safe. Chen glanced sideways and said calmly. Well, thank you Teacher Ace. Rouge raised his hand to lift the golden hair from his ears and nodded obediently. With this gentle look, no one would have imagined that she was the wife of Roger, the Pirate King, if they didn't know. Sister she will trouble you. Chen nodded, then looked at Vice Admiral and said. I see. In response, Vice Admiral he immediately came to the front and took Rouge away from the dock. With her company, I believe she can intimidate some people with dark thoughts in Marine, or in other words, she can also intimidate the Celestial Dragon's men. Watching the 2 people leave the dock, Marshal Kong finally let out a breath of turbid air. To this day, he still feels like it's a dream. It's so dreamy. Let's go. Come with me to the Holy Land. After a while, Marshal Kong waved his hand, and then said to Lu Chen specifically, this matter is very important. Although you are very reluctant, you must go to the Holy Land with me and explain it clearly to the 5 elders. Don't worry, no matter what the outcome is, we at Marine will be on your side. Sengoku, Zephyr and others all nodded in agreement. After all, there have been precedents for pirate children, and now they are all extremely outstanding Marines. Therefore, Roger's bloodline is a bit exaggerated. However, it is not unacceptable. As a result, a large group of people headed towards the Red Line. Chapter 148. Let Lu Chen deal with the Revolutionary Army. Please customize. Advertisement. Lu Chen, Sengoku and others had just returned to Marineford. After settling Roger's wife and children, they turned around and went directly to the Holy Land to report. Wait until they leave. The CPO spies slowly woke up. Damn it, this guy doesn't even notice the celestial dragons. The man in black at the head looked at the direction Lu Chen and others left, gritting his teeth in hatred. Boss, what should we do now? If we can't complete the mission and go back. After the other unconscious men and women in black woke up, their faces could not help but turn pale. This is Marine's responsibility, I will tell the celestial dragons truthfully. The leading man in black said in a deep voice. Then, he waved and took all the spies away, and as quickly as possible, returned to the Holy Land Mariajoy to report. As the top dog licker of the celestial dragons, the CPO has extremely high power, but it cannot give orders to Marine, especially Marine's strong men. But if the celestial dragon's requirements cannot be met, the CPO's spies will also be punished. So, in order to avoid becoming the target of celestial dragon's anger, they could only push Marine out. In other words, push out Lu Chen, the lawless vice admiral, to bear the wrath of the celestial dragons. Red Line, Holy Land Mariajoy. The headquarters of the world government building is extremely majestic. From a distance, it looks very majestic. Walking into it, you can feel the invisible pressure of 3.8 million. It was Lu Chen's first time here, but he was unfazed by it. Pass through the long corridor and come to the huge portal. Squeak. The 2 guards outside the door pushed open the 2 doors with exquisite carvings. Inside the magnificent hall, the 5 elders, who represent the highest authority of the world government, have been waiting for a long time. When they saw the people behind Kong, they couldn't help but express surprise. One of them, in particular, has a relatively unfamiliar face compared to the 5 elders. The rather young-looking Marine Vice Admiral. He has long black hair, hanging casually on his back. Marine's cloak is flying, and his whole body is full of indifferent temperament. Advertisement. There was a long knife hanging on his waist. The handle was green and looked a bit ordinary. To know, the rumored image of Vice Admiral has never been wearing a sword. But the appearance today surprised even the 5 elders. Especially the old man with bald head and glasses couldn't help but take a few more glances at the long knife on Lu Chen's waist, looking very curious. Is this the famous Vice Admiral? He looked away and immediately asked Kong. Aha, everyone should know that this is Lu Chen's first time here. Kong nodded. Sengoku and Zephyr then stepped aside slightly, allowing Lu Chen to be directly exposed to the 5 elders. While the other party was sizing him up, Lu Chen was also sizing up the 5 elders. Scanning his eyes indifferently. There is a slight difference from the old image in my memory, but that is just a matter of age. Long time no see Lu Chen, do you still remember me? Among them, the 5 elders, who had curly gray hair and were sitting in a wheelchair, smiled and said hello to Lu Chen. Do not remember. Lu Chen raised his eyebrows and said directly. The gray curly-haired 5 elders' smile froze, and then he shook his head with a wry smile. Sure enough, it's the same as before. Forget it if you don't remember, but I want to remind you that if you want to keep Roger's blood with you, it is a time bomb, and there will be backlash at any time. He looked at Lu Chen and turned his attention to the topic. Before coming to the Holy Land, Kong had roughly told the 5 elders. Even though they were well informed, Lu Chen's idea of taking Roger's blood as his student was inconceivable and shocking. If it is a request made by someone else, 5 elders does not need to consider it at all and can directly deny it forcefully. However, Lu Chen is definitely an exception. Roger's bloodline should not be left in this world. Although you are confident, I think it is better to be careful when it comes to children with the worst bloodline. The old man with glasses also said. Yes, if you mess up things in the future, it will not be a good thing for you. The old man with long white hair reminded. As a legendary hero of the Marine Corps, you accept the child of the Pirate King as your student. If he knows the truth and betrays you in the future, it will destroy your reputation throughout your life. CHCD, the old man with short blonde hair said with a faint smile. I advise you not to have high expectations for pirates, it will harm you. All the 5 elders spoke one after another. This scene amazed both Sengoku and Zephyr. Once upon a time, was the person with the highest authority in the world government so easy to talk to? Advertisement. Even Kong couldn't help but look askance. Lu Chen, on the other hand, had a calm expression and replied calmly, I don't want to deny Roger's crime, but for a child who has not yet been born, I don't think there is any reason to convict this child, right? Because he is Roger's child, that's reason enough. 5 elders said in a deep voice. Of course, we don't want to preach to you. From the time you entered Marine until now, you don't need anyone to preach to you. At this time, the old man with bald head and glasses picked up a document beside him and handed it to Lu Chen. I hope you can resolve the mess in your monkey family. This can confirm what you just said. After finishing speaking, the other 5 elders also raised their heads and looked at Lu Chen. What's this? Marshal Kong noticed something was wrong in the atmosphere and took the documents first. When he opened it, his face suddenly became extremely ugly. Sengoku and Zephyr came over curiously. After just a few glances, his expression was the same as that of Marshal Kong. Since its birth, the New Force Revolutionary Army has overthrown a total of 78 countries. Wherever they arrived, the revolutionary storm swept across. Even Sengoku couldn't help but feel afraid of this move. Therefore, I beg the world government to carry out a devastating blow to this newly emerged revolutionary army organization with great energy. As you just said, Roger's worst behavior should not involve children. 5 elders are still 5 elders, they are indeed scheming. After finishing speaking, he and the other 5 elders stared at Lu Chen with burning eyes, wanting to see what Lu Chen's reaction would be. Have to say. Then, the 3 of them turned their heads in unison and looked towards Lu Chen. P.S. I wish you all a happy National Day. Thank you to the rich man for the reward, and also to all the veterans for your support through votes. Thank you all. Many countries that have joined the world government are extremely afraid of the existence of the revolutionary army. Oh, it turns out that Xiaolong is causing trouble. Finally, in the new month, please give me some monthly votes. They can be found from all over the world to Grand Line. What's on the file is simple. As confirmation of what you said, this problem will be solved by you. The old man with bald head and glasses held the demon knife in his arms and said with a faint smile, then the worst evil your nephew has committed, we will not contact you and Garp. Lu Chen took the document from Marshal Kong, looked at it for a few times, and immediately smiled brightly and said, as expected of the monkey family, they actually made such a big fuss. Chapter 149. Holding a grudge. Lu Chen's celestial dragons, please customize. Advertisement. But it's a pity. Lu Chen had no reaction. Apart from being slightly relieved, he was more looking forward to this journey. Then I really look forward to meeting you again. He grinned. When Robin was born, he and his nephew met briefly. It's been a long time since we've seen each other. Lu Chen even deliberately prevented himself from paying attention to Long's deeds, just because he wanted to give his nephew greater freedom and space. Now, in just a few years, it has become powerful enough to scare the world's governments. Kindness. Lu Chen was very curious about how far the revolutionary army had grown. Can you still attack your own nephew? At this time, the old man with bald head and glasses looked up at Lu Chen and asked. Haha, don't underestimate the men of the monkey family. Even if I try my best, I may not be able to keep these guys. Lu Chen said with a faint smile. Hearing this, the 5 elders all frowned. Kong, Sengoku and others could not help but frown in thought. To know, in the minds of everyone, Lu Chen is so powerful that even Roger, the Pirate King, is not immune. So what ability can the newly rising revolutionary army have to resist Lu Chen? Not to mention the 5 elders, even Sengoku and others don't believe it. Sensing the doubts of several people, Lu Chen chuckled and explained, the revolutionary army is not pirates. There is no comparison between the two. The difficulty of arresting them is naturally different. Although they have only been born a few years ago, I have heard some rumors that they are extremely good at escaping and hiding. Having said this, Lu Chen looked at 5 elders and others with a smile. Really? The 5 elders nodded in agreement. They are indeed not pirates. Their whereabouts are extremely secretive. It is not easy to find your nephew. The old man with bald head and glasses said first. Even if they are found, they won't fight. The gray curly-haired old man smiled bitterly. Not only will they not respond to the challenge, they also have strong anti-reconnaissance capabilities. They will disappear again before danger comes. The 5 elders with short blonde hair said in an angry tone. The world government has wanted to destroy this so-called revolutionary army more than once. But, as Lu Chen said, the other party is extremely vigilant, its counter-investigation capabilities are terrifying, and its whereabouts are secretive. Every time it acts, it hides behind the scenes and does not give the world government any chance of arrest. Even if you spend huge resources to investigate, in the end you will just watch the other party grow stronger under your eyes. This is the biggest headache for 5 elders. Kong, Sengoku and Zephyr next to them were stunned. Did not expect. In addition to pirates, such a force actually appeared in this world. Advertisement. Moreover, even the power of the world government has a headache due to this. Of course, in order to deal with Roger's matter, the revolutionary army has been ignored. But we cannot let the revolutionary army survive now. With Lu Chen taking action this time, I believe there will be results soon. The 5 elders spoke one after another and looked at Lu Chen, their eyes becoming meaningful. After all, in their eyes, the only people who know dragons best are Lu Chen or Garp, who are both from the monkey family. Don't worry, they won't have any luck meeting me. Lu Chen agreed wholeheartedly, then he closed the document, his eyes fell on 5 elders, and smiled. If there is nothing else, I'll leave first. After finishing speaking, without waiting for the 5 elders to react, Lu Chen turned his head and glanced at Marshal Kong. After receiving his tacit approval, he turned around and left. This purpose has been accomplished. Then there is no need to stay. It's better to go directly to solve the nephew's matter. Seeing Lu Chen's back gradually disappearing at the end of the corridor. The 5 elders looked at each other in confusion, with a hint of doubt between their eyebrows. Have to say, as the most powerful person in the world, they will naturally have great respect for Lu Chen, the marine hero. But that's all. You all should go back as well. Don't let anyone else spread the news about Roger's wife and children except the world government. At this time, the old man with bald head and glasses shouted to Kong and others. Kong and Sengoku naturally had no objection and turned around and left directly. I stayed in the entire lobby and there was no one else behind me. These 5 people in charge of the supreme power of the world government showed solemn expressions. How credible are his words? The old man with bald head and glasses asked, leaning on the sofa with his eyes closed tightly. Have no idea. The choice of Marshal depends on Lu Chen's performance. If he can really solve the problem of the Revolutionary Army, then he can naturally serve as Marshal of the Marines. Otherwise, we will have to let Sengoku come. For the position of Marshal Marine, it is better to have someone who is easy to control. None of the 5 elders have an opinion on this. This was originally something they had discussed long ago. Although Kong recommended Lu Chen was still relatively risky in their eyes. Rather than risk it, let Sengoku do it. At least in many directions, Sengoku and world government have the same intention. At this moment, there were bursts of hurried footsteps outside the door. Advertisement. The 5 elders couldn't help but frown. Next moment, the door was violently pushed open, and a celestial dragon wearing a space suit strode in. Holy Roswader, what wind brings you here? When he saw the visitor, the old man with bald head and glasses sneered unhappily. Please give me flowers. Not those bastards Marine. Saint Roswald said with anger and hatred. I asked CP0 to bring the wife of the Pirate King, but Marine, a subsidiary of your world government, dared to refuse. And that B**************** D, Vice Admiral, has offended Laozi more than once. The Sabayati archipelago matter has not been settled with him yet. This time, you can't. The person who just sent the CPO to naval headquarters was Saint Roswader. At this moment, he couldn't bear it anymore and came to complain to the 5 elders. But before he could finish speaking, the old man with curly gray hair interrupted with a sneer. You actually want to take that woman away. If I had known earlier, I would definitely not have agreed. Besides, do you want the world government to suppress a legendary marine hero just because of your little things? The gray curly-haired old man looked at Roswad with cold eyes and shouted. The other 5 elders also nodded. But this guy. Holy Roswader became angry and wanted to say something, but was interrupted by the short-haired 5 elders, who smiled and said, if you want to punish a marine religious being, unless you find evidence that he has exceeded the bottom line of world government, other than that besides, do you think we'll let you celestial dragons mess around? Let your farce end here. Even the celestial dragons can't mess with our affairs. The old man with bald head and glasses held the demon knife, looked up and said lightly. The 5 elders have nothing to say to this. In particular, today's world government still needs Lu Chen to deal with some things that they all find headaches. For example, Roger's bloodline. In fact, after weighing the pros and cons, 5 elders found that Lu Chen's method is the most beneficial to world government. Therefore, Tuan does not have much to refute. By the way, dealing with a matter involving the Revolutionary Army can be said to kill 2 birds with 1 stone. You're actually accusing me of a lackey. That's great. I want to see what's so special about this guy. Seeing that the 5 elders did not hold naval headquarters accountable for themselves as celestial dragons. Saint Roswald was furious and turned away angrily, secretly hating Marine, the so-called legendary hero. Leaving the world government headquarters building, we returned to the king of Pangu City. Hey, since you can't do anything to him, why can't you do anything to the people around him? Saint Roswald was furious and whispered to himself with a cold face. Well, it is said that he has an older brother who is also a Marine, he seems to be Admiral. Forget it, who else is there? Let the CPO investigate carefully. I don't believe that the people around him are such monsters. 10,000. Chapter 150. Little sister, become a Marine with me. Please customize. Advertisement. After leaving the Holy Land, Lu Chen went straight back to naval headquarters. After taking a look at Rouge, a pregnant woman, he told Sister He again before leaving naval headquarters alone. Momosuke can now take charge of his own business. So it is not difficult to take care of 2 Wanokuni little girls. Among them, Yamato has a carefree personality and extremely high talent. Not only Momosuke likes her, but even Sister He is very interested in her. As for Hiyori, she is cautious and careful in everything, which makes Sister He more concerned. Anyway, the 2 girls have finally stabilized in Marine. Just wait and see them shine for justice in the future. The Revolutionary Army is said to be active in the Grand Line. It seems that my nephew has also established a headquarters. Riding on a specially designed small ship, Lu Chen touched his chin and thought about the recent intelligence of the Revolutionary Army. Soon, he guessed that the Revolutionary Army was gradually growing. At this time, a headquarters belonging to the Revolutionary Army should have been established, responsible for contacting revolutionaries around the world. Think of this. Electricity burst out of Lu Chen's body, and the ship immediately galloped across the sea. However, before looking for the dragon, he first came to the Sabayati archipelago. After docking the ship, he put on a 747 robe to cover Marine's cloak of justice, and then stepped ashore. The clear sky also gradually accumulated with the arrival of Lu Chen, and dark clouds continued to brew and spread over the island. The shadow cast onto the ground and soon covered half of the Sabayati archipelago. You know, because it is close to the red line, the climate here is always very pleasant, and there are rarely dark clouds in the sky. Anyone who knows a little about navigation will know that the dark clouds in the sky are strange. It's been a while, but there are signs of the resurgence of evil forces again. After releasing the strongest observation hockey, Chen easily noticed that people with evil intentions were scattered there on this island. Not long after, he came to the amusement park and sat on a long chair just like a tourist, watching the tourists having fun. But just then, a few crisp voices attracted Chen's attention. Sister, is it going to be night? Why is it so dark? Will we be punished by the captain if we sneak out? Sister Hancock is here, what are you afraid of? Yes, as long as we are not discovered, then there will be no problem. That's great, I want to play on that Ferris wheel. I want to play bubble bike. Okay, have fun. I saw 3 little girls walking hand in hand from a distance. One of them looked to be 7 or 8 years old, with long black and beautiful hair, delicate and picturesque facial features, and a charming appearance at a young age. The other 2 girls were only 5 or 6 years old. One has long wavy green hair, and the other has long orange hair. This seems to be 3 sisters. Oh, Chen glanced over, with surprise appearing on his face. These 3 girls are none other than the 3 sisters Boa and Hancock, the future pirate empresses in the original work. Amazon Lily Kuja from the Calm Belt. The only king of the Daughter Country. Chen once had the idea of going to Daughter's Island, but he never had time. Unexpectedly, this time I came by the way, I met him unexpectedly. This kind of fate is like no other. Advertisement. Just as Chen was looking at the 3 sisters. In a corner of the amusement park, several figures suddenly walked over. They were carrying sacks and had strong bodies. They quickly arrived behind the 3 Hancock sisters, and then directly covered them with sacks. Ah, what happened? Ooh, sister, help me. Sister Hancock. Damn it, who are you? Inside the sack, the frightened voices of the 3 sisters could be heard. However, several human traffickers naturally ignored it and left here holding sacks in one hand. It's a good harvest this time. Go quickly, don't let anyone see you. Let's get out of here first. As he spoke, he had already walked out of the amusement park. Once he succeeds, he leaves immediately without any regrets. He obviously has extremely high professionalism. But they were obviously too naive. The 3 Hancock sisters quickly opened the sacks, holding daggers in their hands, and looked at the traffickers angrily. Several traffickers were stunned. Unexpectedly, the fighting power of a girl at such a young age is not weak at all. However, they were only slightly surprised, and then they sneered and wanted to subdue the 3 girls. And just then, a faint voice came from the side. I said, are you too embarrassed? As the words fell, a few wisps of pale electric light flew along the air and sank directly into the bodies of several traffickers. Next moment, the originally vicious human trafficker's skin was instantly charred black, and he fell down while spitting out smoke, completely losing his chance. The sudden change made the 3 Hancock sisters jump. When they looked back, they found a strange man with a gentle smile on his face. They were all moved like a spring breeze, and their vigilance dropped. Brother, thank you for saving us. Hancock took his 2 sisters and came to Chen to express his gratitude. The Empress at this time did not have as proud a character as in the original work. She looks like a good girl. But it would be a big mistake for ordinary people to underestimate her. Even if Chen didn't take action just now, these human traffickers are no match for these 3 girls. After all, the people of Nine Snake Island were raised as warriors from birth. Despite their young age, their strength is already impressive. Where is your family? Chen asked knowingly and said with a warm smile. We have no family. Hancock shook his head, his big eyes slightly dim. The mother of the 3 sisters died not long after they were born. Since there are no men on Nine Snake Island, there is naturally no father. As that's so, Chen raised his eyebrows, raised a faint smile, and asked, if you don't have family, it will be troublesome. Why don't you follow me? Advertisement. Ah, isn't this great? Hancock's eyes widened and his face was confused. The 2 younger sisters lowered their heads nervously. Let's show off, I'm a Marine. Since you don't have a family, you might as well stay with me and become a Marine from now on. Chen raised his hand and opened his robe, revealing Marine's cloak of justice. As a just Marine, what I hate most are pirates and these bad guys. At this point, he raised his hand and pointed at the fallen trafficker, and said calmly, you must also suffer from it, am I right? The words fell. Hancock and his 2 younger sisters suddenly trembled in their little bodies. The beautiful face instantly turned pale, and the big eyes contained bursts of panic. Yeah, under Chen's gaze, Hancock nodded quickly. That's good, come with me. Chen smiled half-heartedly and raised his hand to rub her long black hair. The 3 sisters had a sad face and did not dare to confess, so they could only follow behind Chen timidly. It's obvious after knowing that Chen is Marine. As a member of the Amazon Lily of Nine Snake Island, he was born to be a pirate, so naturally he did not dare to say it. Haha, today's harvest is good, but it looks like it's time to clean it up. Chen pretended not to know and walked out of the amusement park with a smile. At the same time, boom 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 1. A series of thunder suddenly fell from the black clouds. Thunder came, and the pale electric light illuminated the darkness, and the sky and earth reflected were all white. FK, I knew it was him. Ah, run away quickly, heavenly punishment appears again. What's going on? Who is it that has the guts to come out and fight me? Are you kidding? Who do you think you are? That's heaven's punishment. His thunder alone is enough to destroy us. This guy hasn't appeared in a few years. But every time it appears, it is followed by a bloody purge. 4.8. Maid, you are unlucky to meet this monster. If there is an afterlife, Laozi will definitely not be a pirate. Quote. No matter who has evil thoughts, he will be punished by thunder. At worst, the body turns into ashes. It ranges from serious injuries to death. Whether it's pirates, underground forces, or gang members, it's all like this. Under heaven's punishment, all living beings are equal. This time the big cleaning lasted for several minutes before it stopped. The clouds parted, the brilliant sunshine is shining, and the bubbles reflected are colorful and very beautiful. Sabayati Archipelago, calm has returned again. However, everyone knows that the legendary monster is coming. Marines stationed on the island were dispatched one after another, running around to capture seriously injured pirates and bring them to justice. And as a party, Chen took the 3 Hancock sisters, jumped on the ship, left the Sabayati Archipelago, and sped towards the headquarters of the Revolutionary Army. Chapter 151. Being a pirate will not save the country, please customize. Advertisement. What happened on the island? Hearing the thunderous roar of Sabayati Archipelago behind them, the faces of the 3 Hancock sisters turned pale with fright. Why did lightning fall all of a sudden? Very strange. The 2 younger sisters looked puzzled. Aha, it's nothing, just punishing the bad guys. At this time, Chen, who was in the direction of the bow of the ship, said without looking back. Hearing his words, the 3 Hancock sisters were stunned, with confused expressions on their faces. It took a long time for Hancock, the eldest sister, to react, and a look of horror appeared in her big beautiful eyes. Doesn't Chen mean that the extreme thunder behind him is his masterpiece? What a terrible person. Hancock has lived on 9 Snake Island since he was a child and lacks knowledge of the outside world. He only occasionally came out with his elders and discovered the fun of Sabayati Archipelago. This time, I ran out secretly and unexpectedly encountered Marine. Moreover, it seems that Marine is still very scary. At least in Hancock's perception, the warriors on 9 Snake Island are not as good as the other side. Sister, what does he mean? Could it be that those lightnings are from this Marine? The 2 sisters, who had not yet realized the seriousness of the matter, asked Hancock curiously. When he understood it, he couldn't help but be so frightened that his little body trembled. To know, at this time, neither sister has eaten devil fruit yet. In terms of appearance, although she is not as beautiful as her eldest sister Hancock, she is still very cute. Feeling the trembling of the 3 little girls behind him, Chen felt that he was being too naughty. However, he remained calm and wanted to see when these girls would be willing to confess. Brother Marine. Just as Chen was thinking, Hancock's timid voice came. Kindness. Turn around and look. I found Hancock with his head lowered, his long hair disheveled, and a look of apprehension and uneasiness on his face. She lowered her head, not daring to look at Chen, and her eyes were a little evasive. If there is a place that has always been isolated from the world, and if the people in this place want to live a better life, they can only rob the surrounding ships. Otherwise, they will not be able to satisfy themselves by relying on the food from that place. The lives of so many people. Advertisement. Brother Marine, do you think people in this place are extremely vicious if they become pirates? Hancock said without confidence. The 2 sisters hiding behind her immediately nodded and stared at Chen with their big eyes, wanting to see Chen's reaction. Of course, they thought that Chen didn't know their identities, but Chen just pretended not to know. The place the 3 sisters were talking about was naturally 9 Snake Island. Located in the calm belt, the surrounding waters are home to the Sea Kings. Any ship passing through it will be destroyed. Although this extremely harsh environment has created the isolation and detachment of 9 Snake Islands from the world, it has also resulted in a lack of supplies. Therefore, the king of 9 Snake Island has been a pirate for generations. Just to rob the supplies and feed them back to 9 Snakes Island. It can be said, this problem cannot be solved in the eyes of the people of 9 Snake Island, and even the king. But, when Chen heard this, he smiled slightly. Seeing the spring-like smile on his face, the 3 Hancock sisters felt a little relieved for some reason. The place you mentioned is too special. Chen pretended not to know and smiled. Yes, we heard the story too, but we don't know where it is. But in that place, if we don't become pirates, many people will starve to death. A forced smile appeared on Hancock's face. Behind him, the 2 younger sisters nodded again and again. Then why do you want to become a pirate? However, Chen stopped his smile at this time and asked in a solemn voice. The words fell. As soon as the 3 sisters relaxed, they immediately became nervous. Isn't it true that if you don't become a pirate, that place won't have enough supplies to survive? Hancock explained quickly, looking like he had a guilty conscience. Since we are poor in supplies, we shouldn't become pirates. Chen shook his head and said with a serious tone, in this sea, in terms of supplies, Marine dares to be number 1, but no one dares to be number 2. If you really don't have enough supplies, why do you want to become a pirate? Son, if you become a Marine, you can ensure the smooth flow of shipping routes no matter where it is. If trade is opened up, will there still be a shortage of supplies? Even that place is inaccessible to outsiders. Advertisement. However, people from that place can also come out and conduct transactions with merchants on the sea in the name of Marine. And after becoming a Marine, no one will dare to offend. Even if you encounter a pirate, you have to go around it. Looking at the three Hancock sisters who were dumbfounded, Lu Chen smiled warmly, raised his hand to rub her black hair, and said with a smile, "Think about it, is becoming a Marine much better than becoming a pirate?" "Of course it's better to be a Marine," Hancock replied with a dull nod. "So good." Lu Chen smiled with satisfaction. "In the future, you will definitely become an outstanding Marine Empress." The Empress possesses extremely high talents, and only by becoming a Marine can she take advantage of her advantages. To know, Lu Chen had imagined this scene a long time ago. In his heart, he has always had rather emotional thoughts about Hancock's future. "You are a beautiful woman, but why am I a thief?" These 8 words represent Lu Chen's regret for 217 Hancock's original future. "Then let's come together, but don't shout about hard work." Lu Chen put on her robe and jumped onto the shore. Then she turned to the 3 Hancock sisters and asked, "Are you waiting on the boat, or are you coming with me?" The ship driven by current came to a deserted coast. No fear of the powerful combat power of any pirate in the world. 5 days later, there is no doubt that the 3 sisters are in the heart of this moment. Becoming a pirate cannot save 9 Snake Island. Of course we followed. Bases all over the world. Lu Chen smiled, then took out the Zanpakuto from his waist, held it directly in his hand, and then led the way. "But, you can become a Marine." The group of people soon entered the desolate and vast Desert King. In the past few days, the 3 sisters have accepted the reality of becoming Marine. Moreover, I gradually became quite trusting in my understanding of Lu Chen. Hancock took his 2 sisters and jumped ashore immediately. We finally arrived at our destination this time. After all, in the past few days, Lu Chen has been telling them how powerful the Marine in this sea is. An immortal monument to justice. Chapter 152, Lu Chen's vision for the future. Please customize. Advertisement. Grand Line, Island of White Earth. The base of the Revolutionary Army is located here in Bardigo. This is a desolate place full of yellow sand and troubled times. The environment is very harsh, the weather is hot, there is no grass growing among the sand and gravel, and it is full of loneliness. Lu Chen took the 3 Hancock sisters and walked in the desert with 1 foot deep and 1 foot shallow. The scorching sun hung overhead, making the earth extremely hot, and the air in his sight was distorted. The 3 Hancock sisters, holding hands, followed closely behind Lu Chen. Along the way, the little guys didn't complain a word. A look of perseverance appeared on his small face. In his eyes, there is determination bursting towards the goal. This is the power of purpose. It can be seen that they want to become outstanding Marines and save their hometown. At such a young age, they burst out with endurance that even adults cannot bear. However, the climate in this barren land is really too harsh. After walking for half a day, Hancock's 2 sisters were almost exhausted from exhaustion. If it weren't for his extremely tenacious will, I might have sat down long ago. Even so, it is almost reaching the limit of the body. Well, she is indeed an empress. It seems that she is still far away from the limit. Lu Chen walked in the front, not too fast nor too slow, always paying attention to what was behind him. Among the 3 sisters, Hancock has to take care of 2 younger sisters, but his current state completely overwhelms the elite Marine soldiers. This talent is so high that he is simply blessed by nature. It would be a waste of resources if I didn't become a Marine. Certainly, what Lu Chen is interested in is not just Hancock's own talent and strength. Also, the 9 Snake Island behind her. A country where everyone is a warrior and everyone is armament hockey. What a terrifying power that is. In addition to high-end combat capabilities, Naval Headquarters also has many shortcomings. If guarding the calm belt of the Grand Line, that is the function of Dinghai Shenzhen. Take a break. Thinking of this, Lu Chen stopped, turned his head and smiled at the 3 sisters who were panting heavily from exhaustion. Almost as soon as he finished speaking. As soon as Hancock let go of his sister's hand, the 3 little girls fell directly onto the yellow sand. Ignoring the hot yellow sand, I lay directly on my back on the fine sand. Buzz. The fine sand suddenly surged, as if something alive was breaking out of it. The 3 Hancock sisters were so frightened that they all got up and ran to Lu Chen's side. Next moment, the 3 sisters were dumbfounded. Advertisement. Under the barren desert, at this moment, tree roots like spiritual snakes climbed out. Immediately afterwards, flowers, plants, trees and plants grew crazily. In less than a moment, a small forest outline with a radius of 10 meters was formed, which can provide shade in this hot weather. Everyone sit down and rest for a while. Lu Chen smiled at the 3 stunned sisters. Immediately, he took the lead to walk to the center of the lush plants. As he sat down, the roots of the tree immediately outlined a chair. This scene shocked the 3 Hancock sisters. Brother Marine, is this magic? It must be a miracle. Good to leave. The eyes of the 3 little girls suddenly shone. Ahem, we agreed, my name is Lu Chen, not Marine. Lu Chen shook his head, smiled, and corrected. Well, it's Marine Vice Admiral, Lu Ji. Yes, Brother Lu Chen. The 3 Hancock sisters shouted sweetly. Although they are very young, the eldest Hancock is only 7 or 8 years old. But Lu Chen's appearance is very young, he seems to be only about 20 years old, so there seems to be nothing wrong with calling him brother. To this, Lu Chen smiled bitterly, and then stopped worrying. I rested for about half an hour. After the 3 little girls recovered their strength, the team continued to set off. It's the last part of the journey. Just hold on and we'll be there soon. After stepping out of the shady place with lush trees, Lu Chen looked into the depths of the desert with a faint arc at the corner of his mouth. Under his keen perception, at the end of the sight, a small town stood on the hot desert. Sizzling. The subtle sound of electric arc flowing suddenly echoed in the surrounding air. But the movement was too subtle. If you don't pay careful attention, it will be difficult to spot it even if you are close to a road car. The three Hancock sisters, facing the scorching sun, were a little exhausted and followed Lu Chen feebly. Naturally, they would not notice these movements. But, as time goes by, the scorching sun temperature seems to be less scorching. This change was very slight at first. Suddenly, faint black clouds gathered in the cloudless scorching sky in the desert, gradually forming dark clouds that directly blocked the scorching sun. How is this going? Ah, is it going to rain? Idiot, this is Brother Lu Chen's fault. Of the three sisters, only Hancock discovered something. She raised her hand and pointed at Lu Chen who was walking in front. Advertisement. The back figure is still the same, but as the sky darkens, it is faintly visible, and there is a faint electric arc flowing between the long black hair, releasing a faint white light. The large shadows cast by the dark clouds in the sky continued to flow towards the depths of the desert as Lu Chen marched. From a distance, it looks like a dark giant beast, opening its mouth big enough to swallow the world, constantly eroding the desert. What's going on? Why are there dark clouds? This weather is not real, is it? Hey, there's a stranger there. Is it Marine? No, did a young man and three little girls accidentally break into this desert? Quote. Don't let them get close, hurry up and intercept them. HMPH, don't take it lightly at this time. According to intelligence, the world government has begun to pay attention to us. When Lu Chen and others walked through a sand dune, they immediately attracted the attention of the revolutionary troops lying in wait. The next moment, several figures suddenly stood up on the ground that looked like yellow sand on one side. Ah, there's someone there. Seeing this, Hancock took his sister's little hand and ran a few steps quickly to get behind Lu Chen. It seems that only by Lu Chen's side can the three sisters feel safe. Those were a few men wearing simple coats. The skin is very rough, and it can be seen that they are men who have experienced many years of weathering. Brother, you don't look like locals. Coming closer, the leader, a big man, asked with a simple and honest smile. Yes, Lu Chen glanced over and smiled lightly. The front is known as the land of death. You are not locals. It is best not to go in. You will easily get lost. After hearing Lu Chen's words, several men suddenly thought they were tourists. I know, Lu Chen nodded. Now that you know Wang Qian's truth, it's best to go back the way you came. You'd better not go any further if you take the little girl with you. This is not possible, I still need to find someone. Looking for someone. Do you know any friends in the desert? Several revolutionary soldiers disguised as local residents frowned and asked. However, their tone was still very easygoing. At least it doesn't look like it makes people wary or scared. The three Hancock sisters who were hiding behind Lu Chen peeked out with curious expressions on their faces. Of course, otherwise why would I come to this damn place? Lu Chen smiled lightly. Hearing this, several honest men suddenly looked confused. In my heart, I was all half convinced and half doubtful. But before they could ask again, Lu Chen continued to speak. If I guess correctly, the person I'm looking for should be your leader, Monkey D. Dragon. The words fell. In the scorching desert weather, several men felt as if they had fallen into a cold winter ice lake, and the hairs all over their bodies exploded in an instant. Chapter 153. My uncle is here, run away please customize. Advertisement. Battergo. This is a city built deep in the desert. The surrounding yellow sand is everywhere, the atmosphere is desolate and lonely, and boring as the eternal theme. But, with the arrival of the Revolutionary Army, this originally dead city is once again full of vitality and vitality. In a castle standing on the desert floor, on the balcony of the top floor, stood a figure wearing a dark green cloak. His black hair is wild, his cheeks are tattooed, and his eyes are burning, looking into the distance to the east. The whole person was stunned. From behind, a gentle voice came. The big bear holding a Bible came to the dragon and said, recent intelligence from around the world shows that the world government is preparing to deal with us. There are many comrades who have lost contact and wonder if they have been arrested by the world government. The tone was very worrying. Long laughed, quite confident. No matter how many people are arrested, as long as the world government continues to decay, the fire of revolution will not be extinguished. Having said this, he retracted his gaze to the east and looked at the square below the castle. Even if the sky is full of yellow sand and the earth is dry and silent. But the Revolutionary Army soldiers who were lined up neatly and training were full of vitality. If the world government wants to find us, let them find us. 050. Who would have thought that the base of the revolution is hidden in the desert? Long opened his hands and smiled confidently. It can be said. In this barren land, not to mention government personnel, even the local residents on the island rarely go deep into the desert. The surrounding yellow sand and rocks are the best cover for the base area. Da da da. The sound of rapid footsteps came from the room behind. People haven't arrived yet. The sound of panic has already reached the ears of Long and Bartholomew Kuma. None of the peripheral intelligence personnel in the West can be contacted. Terry Gildio, who was in charge of the Revolutionary Army's intelligence network, rushed out with a look of horror on his face. The words fell. Long and Bartholomew Kuma suddenly turned their heads and looked over, their eyes becoming as sharp as an eagle's in an instant. Just now I was worried that the world government would find me, but I didn't expect something would happen in the blink of an eye. Bartholomew Kuma's tone remained gentle. However, the huge body already exudes a strong sense of oppression. Anyone who knows him knows that. The former tyrant Shang did not become gentle, he just suppressed his cruel temper deep in his heart. Don't panic. Even if there is an enemy invasion, the number will not be too large. Long was stunned for a moment, then smiled lightly. CHCD. We can no longer contact people in the West. Terry Kildeo said anxiously. Advertisement. Precisely because there is an accident only in the West, it proves that the other three directions are safe. 11. Long smiled lightly, with a confident and wild smile on his lips. No matter who the enemy is, don't panic too much, just follow the original plan. It seemed that he felt the spirit of the leader. Da Shang and others also calmed down a little. Then, the three of them turned around and entered the castle, only to find that no one was there. They all walked out of the east balcony, with their backs facing them, looking like sculptures. What are these guys wearing? Kildeo complained dissatisfiedly and immediately contacted other cadres to put the entire Battergo into the highest combat readiness state. Woo woo woo. In an instant, piercing sirens resounded throughout the city. What happened? Don't ask. Just like the drill, prepare everything for me. Yes, it may also be a drill. Something's wrong. If it's an exercise, how can it be the highest level of combat readiness? That is an exercise of the highest level of combat readiness. It seems to make sense. At this moment, the base headquarters of the Revolutionary Army immediately mobilized. Everyone was well organized and started taking action as if they had been drilled thousands of times. And on the roof of the castle headquarters, from the east balcony, Ivankov's exclamation came. Long, something is going to happen, come and take a look. The tone was shocking as never before. The rest of the people were all petrified on the spot. Long and Bartholomew Kuma looked at each other and immediately walked out side by side. As soon as he stepped out of the door, the light in his sight dimmed instantly. At the end of the yellow sand sky, surging black clouds were seen, constantly spreading towards the castle. From a distance, it looks like the mouth of a giant beast, trying to swallow up the entire base of the Revolutionary Army. This is a desert area, and this kind of weather has never happened before. After just one glance, Bartholomew Kuma was shocked, and his white eyes could not help but widen. Have you sent anyone to check? Long frowned, feeling a little uneasy. Extreme weather is too suspicious. For some reason, he always felt an extremely ominous premonition in his heart. Yes, and the people sent are not weak. Kildeo also walked out at some point, staring dumbfounded at the dark clouds in the west. There are thunder and lightning in the black clouds, and the desert has been barren all year round. I have never seen such a scene before. Hear the words. Many senior leaders of the Revolutionary Army on the dull balcony felt an invisible depressive atmosphere. And at the same moment, the dark clouds cast the shadow at the forefront. Advertisement. Lu Chen walked with a sword, and the three Hancock sisters followed nervously behind him. Along the way, on the desert, people fell everywhere. Battergo at the end of the horizon is not far away. Who is it? If you dare to commit murder here, I will kill you. At this time, several more athletic figures appeared and rushed towards Lu Chen at high speed. In their hands, they either held long knives or long spears. When they saw the fallen companions on the road coming behind Lu Chen, everyone became furious. Pity. Facing the people rushing towards him, Lu Chen raised his eyelids and stared at them. Next moment, Conqueror's hockey turned into a torrent and hit directly. Boom. Yellow sand flew into the air, and several people fell to the ground, instantly falling into a coma with foaming at the mouth. Here we go again. Why did they all fall down on their own? Idiot. It was Brother Lu Chen who did it. Among the three sisters, only Hancock could faintly sense that Lu Chen was releasing an unusual aura. No matter who it was, when they came close, they seemed unable to resist. That's all. Lu Chen never made a move from beginning to end. Just this smile frightened Long's face into a drastic change. At the same time, next moment, it's finally here. I haven't seen him for a few years, and I see my nephew gradually mature and have the temperament and demeanor of a leader. The four eyes faced each other, and their eyes collided in midair. A scream filled with endless terror resounded in the sky above Battergo. Lu Chen's eyes were instantly locked on the dark green figure in the center. Monkey D. Long also came over. 10 minutes later. Conqueror's hockey alone can knock out all incoming enemies. The dark clouds in the sky followed Lu Chen and stopped outside the city, blocking the sunlight and shrouding the world in darkness. P.S. Thank you all for your support with tickets and flowers, thank you all. My uncle is here, run away. Looking from here, you can just see the tall castle in the city, which is filled with densely packed figures. Lu Chen couldn't help but grin. Just outside the city of Battergo. His eyes raised slightly. Chapter 154. If you underestimate me, you will die, please customize. Advertisement. Hearing Long's horrified shouting, everyone was stunned for a moment, unable to react at all. Uncle is here. Why are you running away? This is what everyone is confused about. Even Bartholomew Kuma and Ivankov, who had met Lu Chen, had their eyes widened with doubts on their faces. Now is not the time to be in a daze. The entire army must obey orders and do everything possible to get me out of here. 17. Seeing that the comrades around him were still confused, Long suddenly became anxious and roared loudly. In an instant, everyone who was stunned was completely awakened. Although I don't know what happened. But as the leader of the revolutionary army, Long has supreme majesty within the organization. So after his words fell, the cadres on the balcony turned and left one after another. And, while leaving, notify the members at the same time, do everything possible, and use the fastest speed. Escape this city. Just under a minute, the whole castle was almost empty. I saw neatly packed figures emerging one after another on the streets of Batargo. There are men and women, old and young. It looks like a great escape. However, even though the whole city was fleeing, it was in an orderly manner without any panic. After all, for the grassroots members, just regard this escape as a normal exercise. Ah, why did they all run away? So many people. Is it because you are afraid of Brother Chen? When the three Hancock sisters saw this, they all showed surprised expressions. An evacuation on this scale is completely beyond the imagination of ordinary people. If you look down from a high altitude, it looks like ants moving. The scene is very spectacular. But, Chen just glanced at it briefly and stopped paying attention. Instead, he fixed his gaze on the figures on the top floor of the castle. The highest level of the revolutionary army. Monkey D. Dragon, Ivankov, Mori, Bartholomew Kuma, Crow and others. Especially on Long's face, cold sweat broke out on his forehead. He looked at Chen with deep horror and fear. Long, isn't this your uncle? Why are you so scared? Ivankov was puzzled by this and couldn't help but ask. Don't say it's this S********E. In fact, everyone does. Heavenly Punishment Vice Admiral Chen, it's not like they have never met each other before. Wasn't the atmosphere very harmonious back then? Why this time, it's like meeting an enemy. Advertisement. Facing the doubtful looks of everyone, Long didn't answer. His eyes were fixed on Chen. In particular, the long sword held in Chen's hand. If the weapon is exposed, it means that Zhang Ruo has entered a fighting state. No doubt, Long, who has grown up in the shadow of Chen since childhood, understands this truth very well. So the first thing to do was to give the order to abandon this base and escape from the White Earth Island as quickly as possible. Really, just at this time, Chen, who was standing on the edge of the city, suddenly raised his hand, grabbed his robe, raised his hand and threw it aside. In an instant, the inner marine cloak is revealed. Ah, I understand, is your uncle now coming as marine? Seeing this scene, Ivankov reacted immediately and felt a chill down his spine. Hey, what do you think? Long didn't answer the question, and the cold sweat on his forehead dropped to the ground. Dashong and others also woke up and were suddenly shocked. But, no more time was given to these revolutionary troops. Chen, who was standing on the edge of the desert city, slowly raised the long sword in his hand, and then slashed down on the tall castle with one strike. Boom! Pointing at the tip of the sword, a huge sword energy flew through the air, tearing apart the desert in an instant, and came straight to the front of the castle. The sword has not arrived yet. But huge pressure has already fallen on the hearts of Long, Dashong and others. Run! In an almost instinctive reaction, Long shouted and jumped out of the castle. Others no longer need to be warned. Just when Chen raised his hand, everyone was already making dodge movements. Next moment, the sword energy struck, and the solid castle was split into two, falling to the left and right. Sand and dust billowed into the sky. The huge movement attracted the attention of the organization members who had fled not far away, and they all turned their heads and looked back. Hiss! Everyone took a breath of cold air. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. The headquarters building was cut open. Hey, can anyone tell me what this means? The desert has been plowed into a deep hole. How terrifying is this sword? The members of the organization stopped and started talking one after another. Advertisement. But soon, they received a notice from their superiors. This is not a drill. Everyone should flee from here immediately. According to the drill, no one should show up before the organization has restored contact. I wish everyone good luck. Please give me flowers. After saying that, the top command's collar hung up. Some people couldn't believe it when they heard this. However, when first saw the marine cloak at the end of the dark clouds and the flying cloak of justice, I completely believed it. It's marine, everyone run away. For a time, countless soldiers of the revolutionary army were shouting and fleeing in all directions in the desert. To this, Chen ignored it. After all, he was only one person, how could he capture so many people? Therefore, he only needs to focus on Chong. Uncle, you came here without saying hello, you scared me. The sand and dust gradually disappeared, and the dragon's figure slowly walked out. If I say hello in advance, wouldn't you have time to make preparations? 0. Looking at his nephew who was approaching, Chen smiled lightly and said, the enemy will not give you time to prepare. Although I knew that the world government was preparing to deal with us, I didn't expect that the world government would ask you to come in person. Long Man said with a bitter smile on his face. Then I have no choice but to wrong you. Chen smiled lightly. Then, holding a long sword, he slowly walked towards the dragon. This is the base of our revolutionary army. If you come here, you will destroy it. Long growled through gritted teeth. It doesn't matter if you destroy bad things. You just brought 3 little girls here. Are you looking down on us too much? I alone am enough. If you underestimate our strength, you will suffer a loss. But if you underestimate me, you will die. Lu Chen smiled lightly. As his words fell, the long sword fell towards the dragon again. This sword has not fallen yet. But the huge air pressure was like a huge mountain, directly pressing the dragon in place. Boom. His body was instantly unable to bear it. His knees bent and he knelt on one knee in the desert. The huge force caused the desert with a radius of 1 kilometer to undulate like waves. At the same time, the long sword in Lu Chen's hand suddenly came to the top of the dragon's head. At this critical moment, a buzzing sound, a huge bear paw shock wave suddenly appeared from behind the dragon and headed straight towards Lu Chen. Even if you are an uncle, you can't underestimate us. Long knelt down on one knee, raised his head with difficulty, and grinned at Lu Chen. And, Chapter 155, Familiar One Life for Another. Please customize. Advertisement. As Long's words fell, the bear's paw shock wave has already come close, squeezing the huge air, completely releasing huge energy fluctuations at this moment. Even Lu Chen had to change the trajectory of the sword and hold Kyoka Suigetsu in front of him. Rumble. The shock wave raged past and directly submerged Lu Chen. The dragon took this opportunity to stand up, and immediately retreated, pulling away far enough before stopping with lingering fear. Long, isn't this your uncle? I look like an enemy. Ivankov came to Long's side, his forehead covered with cold sweat. Have you offended your uncle and he is here to take revenge? Big Bear flashed up and came to the dragon's side and asked. Even though his tone was gentle, it contained horror and disbelief. That sword strike just now. If you don't take action in time, if you are hit, you will definitely die. I'm afraid that the Revolutionary Army will be expelled from the sea at this point. Don't say stupid things now, don't be eager to fight. When everyone has almost escaped, you can leave first, I will be the last one. The dragon gritted his teeth and growled. Hearing this, everyone's expressions were shocked, and they no longer dared to have any thoughts about 4 buildings. If he wasn't really desperate, I probably wouldn't be so decisive. Ah, Brother Marine is going to be defeated. On the other side, after seeing Lu Chen being submerged by the wind and sand, the 3 Hancock sisters had worried looks on their faces. That is impossible, a faint voice was conveyed in the wind and sand. Hearing this, the 3 little girls cheered and shouted. Next moment, the wind and sand formed by the shock wave were instantly cut into fragmented airflow as Lu Chen waved his long sword, and disappeared between the sky and the earth in a short time. His figure also appeared in the sight of the Revolutionary Army again. Since you kids are all here, let's take action together. Lu Chen smiled lightly. Then, he continued to walk towards their direction. Every step he took seemed to step on everyone's hearts, filled with a strong sense of oppression. Damn it, your uncle is so desperate. Ivankov was almost frightened. This sense of oppression is like the pressure of a god, making it very difficult for people to even move. Long, as the leader of the Revolutionary Army, you shouldn't take risks. Ivankov was under tremendous pressure, suddenly roared, and then charged directly towards Lu Chen. Death wink. Boom. In response, Lu Chen just waved his sword like a fly. Ivankov's body flew upside down like a cannonball, smashing through several buildings in an instant and leaving a series of traces on the desert ground before stopping. The person was completely silent. Ivankov. The dragon gritted its teeth and roared. Incompetent rage is just the hallmark of the weak. Lu Chen kept walking and smiled lightly. At this moment, the desert ground under his feet suddenly became like undulating waves, trying to throw him away. Long, go quickly, I'll stop him. A delicate voice came. Advertisement. A passage opened in the ground, and a huge figure blocked Lu Chen's approach. It was Mori from the giant race. Boom. Before Mori even made a move, his huge body flew out in an instant and hit the desert ground heavily, raising dust all over the sky. The people were completely silent. Mori. Long's eyes were about to burst, he clenched his fists and shouted. He wanted to charge forward, but the big bear and the crow were blocking him. After all, in everyone's minds, the core of the Revolutionary Army was the dragon. As long as he is around, the fire of revolution can turn into a sea of fire. Crash. The crow's body turned into a sky full of black birds, fluttering its wings and sweeping towards Lu Chen. I think you should stop it. Facing crows flying all over the sky, Lu Chen gently waved his sword. The terrifying sword pressure was like a huge mountain, directly scattering the crows in the sky, and finally condensed into the human form of crows, directly smashing through several buildings. Man, there was no sound again. After all, if you want to step over ants without crushing them, it's very difficult to master. Lu Chen smiled lightly. The 3 Hancock sisters in the distance were already stunned. They all know that Lu Chen should be very strong. But what I didn't expect was that he would deceive the sky to such an extent. Sister, Brother Lu Chen, seems to be more powerful than the king. What do you mean? It seems to be true. As this marine. The 3 sisters' eyes were shining as they looked at Lu Chen's figure with admiration in their eyes. And the other side, the expressions of the dragon and the bear changed drastically. Then they looked at each other. Todoroki. Long couldn't bear it any longer, broke free from the big bear's blockage, and charged directly towards Lu Chen. His hands turned into dragon claws, covering the armed color hockey. Dragon claw. With a loud shout, he came to Lu Chen in an instant. Oh, that's good. My strength has improved a lot. Lu Chen chuckled lightly, and the long sword in his hand slashed down from top to bottom. This sword looks ordinary, but for some reason, Long's expression changed and he felt an unprecedented danger. That is the feeling of death. Ah! The dragon screamed in fright. With a click of its claws, it fell directly to the ground. The whole person then twisted its body and rolled to the side. The moment he dodged, from Lu Chen's feet, a huge sword mark immediately spread out and flew to the end of the desert. He didn't know where the end was. Hahu! Hahu! Long stared and exclaimed. Uncle, you are going to kill someone. It is conceivable that if he had not dodged in time just now, he would have hit him. As a result, he might be killed on the spot. Isn't this nonsense? Don't be distracted when fighting. Lu Chen said lightly, then took a step forward. Advertisement. The speed was so fast that it tore the air immediately. In an instant, he was in front of the dragon and slashed it down again. The dragon had no time to react to such terrifying continuous attacks. The air suddenly shook. Bartholomew Kuma's huge body appeared in front of the dragon in an instant. He clapped his hands violently and collided with the road car's sword in an instant. There was no huge burst of movement. Lu Chen's long knife happened to cut off the meatball that landed in the center of Big Bear's palm, but the blade did not cut through his meatball. I am a person with abilities who ate the meatball fruit. I can rebound all physical attacks. Big Bear's eyes turned white and he said expressionlessly. Oh, is it so? Lu Chen grinned, then held the hilt of the sword tightly with both hands and said, then try rebounding. As soon as he finished speaking, the muscles all over his body bulged, and the vast power was directly injected into Kyoka Suigetsu, and a majestic sword energy suddenly burst out. Boom. Big Bear didn't even have time to react, and his whole body was swept up by the sword energy, and he flew backwards to the doctor in an instant. I don't know how far it flew before finally falling heavily. A slight muffled sound took a long time to reach here. Uncle, I have made great progress over the years, but I didn't expect that you didn't stand still either. At this time, Long had no companions around him. Seeing that all the fleeing organization members had disappeared from sight, he couldn't help but stand up slowly, stared at Lu Chen, and said solemnly, even so, I won't do it to you. Accompanied by a loud roar. Within a radius of 1 kilometer, the air suddenly exploded, forming a terrifying hurricane in an instant, connecting the sky and the earth, directly tearing out a huge hole in the dark clouds covering the sky. Uncle, this is my true strength. The dragon opened his hands, his 5 fingers turned into dragon claws, and rushed forward again. Wherever it passes, the hurricane is like a blade, and everything it cuts will be shattered. Good. Facing his nephew's furious state, Lu Chen raised a bright smile and finally gave a good evaluation. Then, press with the long knife. The power condensed in the blade has a usage rate of 4.6. Huh, you actually still have strength. Buzz. His clothes were in tatters and his head was bleeding, but he still stood in front of Lu Chen, opening his hands to block Lu Chen's way. Boom. Of course, it's just good. Although I don't know why, I still hope that you will let our leader go and arrest me so that the world government will not pursue it. Lu Chen was startled, with a hint of surprise on his face. Likewise, it also shattered the hurricane linking heaven and earth with one blow. It seems that what he is telling is just an insignificant thing. There is absolutely no place for resistance. Big Bear said expressionlessly. The tone is still very gentle. All the top leaders of the Revolutionary Army were trapped here. Big Bear is in very bad shape right now. When they reached the 3-meter range, the air suddenly vibrated, and Bartholomew Kuma's huge body instantly blocked Lu Chen's path. Lu Chen sheathed the sword and strode towards the fallen dragon. It was like a beam of light penetrating the sky and the earth, directly drowning the charging dragon. In an instant, the dragon completely lost its voice and fell to the ground with white eyes. Chapter 156. Priceless treasure from the mysterious East. Please customize. Advertisement. In Badilgo, the sky is filled with yellow sand and hurricanes are raging. This city built deep in the desert is now in dilapidated condition, with broken walls and ruins all over the ground. The hot wind blew by, making a rustling sound. Quote. Suddenly, an exclamation came from the street. When Long woke up from a coma, he felt like his bones were falling apart, his clothes were in tatters, and the blood from his wounds had solidified on them. After being baptized by the yellow sand, he looked very embarrassed. Am I dead? After waking up a little, Long looked at the devastated city with a look of surprise on his face. His mind gradually recalled what happened before he fell into coma. Facing the shadow of his childhood, Uncle Lu Chen, even though he tried all his strength, the result was very miserable. With just one blow, he seriously injured himself. This is such a cruel reality. Of course, he had absolutely no doubt about his uncle's care and love for him. But if they are forced by the pressure of the world government, there is no guarantee that they will not have a painful experience for the Revolutionary Army. Susu. While he was lost in thought, the sound of fine sand flowing suddenly came from the surroundings. Long turned his head and looked over, his face full of joy. Hip. Looks like I'm still alive. Ivankov jumped up from the sand, and when he saw the dragon not far away, he immediately ran over. It can be seen that it is injured. But because he is a user with the ability of the hormone fruit, his injuries heal very quickly. At this time, he had recovered a lot. Apart from looking miserable, there was no sign of any injuries at all. I thought I was facing death just now, but I didn't expect that I was still alive. On the other side, Mori's huge body got up from the ground and said with lingering fear. None of us are dead. Are you disdainful of killing us, or are you not murderous at all? The crow was quite embarrassed and staggered towards him. Not long after, When everyone gathered around Long, their expressions suddenly became a little ugly. Where's the big bear? Everyone shouted almost in unison. As soon as the words fell, their eyes all fell on Long. Advertisement. I fell into a coma and just woke up. I don't know what happened next. Long frowned and smiled bitterly. But we are all fine, which proves that my uncle will not really want to kill us, but as for why, I don't know, but Big Bear should be fine. At this point, his tone became firm. If Big Bear wants to escape, my uncle can't stop him at all, but since he's not here, he may have his reasons. After hearing his words, everyone thought about it and seemed to think it made sense. What's this? Suddenly, Ivankov's eyes turned and landed on the desert ground next to the dragon. There was a thick book lying quietly on the ground. The wind and sand blew by, sweeping away the yellow sand on the cover, revealing several large characters, words that did not belong to this world. Dragon, what is this? Crow and others asked curiously. They had never seen this kind of square writing before. Ha ha ha. When Long looked down, he burst into laughter. He picked up the book, blew away the fine sand, and held it in the palm of his hand as if he were holding a rare treasure. I laughed for a long time before telling my comrades. This is a word my uncle taught me since I was a child. Only he and I know what I mean. Long grinned and explained. Even if I want to send a letter to Uncle Lu Chen, even if it is intercepted, I can still cover up the content of the letter. Then what does this mean? Ivankov and others looked at the big words on the cover with curious expressions on their faces. A priceless treasure from the Far East. Holding the book in both hands, Long said word by word in a solemn tone. As soon as these words came out, the expressions of Ivankov and others changed dramatically. Because the East is the direction that Long has always mentioned. It has an inexplicable magical power for Long, the leader, and for them, the top leaders of the Revolutionary Army. Dragon, is this it? Ivankov's breathing quickened. No way. Long once told us that the mysterious East has a great weapon to subvert the world government. Mori was also shocked. So, your uncle came here not to arrest us, but to deliver this book. Crow frowned, his tone trembling. I have no idea. Long smiled bitterly, and then slowly opened the cover of the book under everyone's curious eyes. The next moment, 4 square fonts came into their sight. A protracted debate. Long couldn't help but exclaimed. My face was filled with uncontrollable excitement and excitement. Advertisement. Hearing this, Ivankov, Crow and others next to him all took a deep breath. Is this the killer weapon that their leader has been thinking about day and night? The coast direction of White Earth Island. The ship with a sci-fi appearance slowly sailed out of the coast and sped straight towards the sea. This so-called base is actually not as secret as you think. Even if it is destroyed, don't feel sorry for it. Lu Chen lay on the beach chair and smiled with his eyes slightly closed. In the original book, the headquarters of the Revolutionary Army was actually found by Blackbeard and other rabble, but it was actually not that secret. It's just that the Revolutionary Army deliberately avoided the detection of the world government. But when it comes to pirates or other dark forces, they seem to be somewhat ignored. This surprise inspection can also be regarded as a drill for the Revolutionary Army in advance when they encounter a desperate situation. I see. Bartholomew Kuma, who was sitting cross-legged on the side of the boat, nodded and said expressionlessly. His clothes are in tatters, but the wound has been stopped and the blood has coagulated. Although he is in a mess, at least he is not seriously injured. Next to them were the 3 Hancock sisters. Looking at the 2 of them, little 890 had doubts on their faces. In the end, they couldn't figure it out and returned to the cabin to rest. On the deck, there were only 2 people, Lu Chen and Bartholomew Kuma. Even if you return in vain, the world government will not be able to do anything to me, but it still surprises me if you take the initiative to surrender. Lu Chen glanced sideways and said in surprise. I had no choice before, but now I am willing to surrender. I believe the world government will also be surprised. Bartholomew Kuma looked up and said softly. Why? Lu Chen asked curiously. Some passed, but none of it is important. Big Bear shook his head, his white eyes showing determination. The important thing is that it can play some role for both you and the dragon. I was forced before, so why are you willing now? Lu Chen smiled lightly. The treasure you just left behind. Dashong was very honest and said with a solemn expression. That is enough for the Revolutionary Army to have the capital to fight against the world government. In the Revolutionary Army, if I am missing, there will be no impact. But I am outside and very important to the Revolutionary Army. Okay. Don't say such stupid things in front of a Marine Vice Admiral, okay? Before Big Bear could finish speaking, Lu Chen waved his hand to interrupt, then lay down on the beach chair and closed his eyes to rest. Chapter 157. The 5 Elders' Decision. Please customize. Advertisement. Lu Chen chose not to care about the relationship between Bartholomew Kuma and world government. As long as all parties are satisfied with this operation, that will be enough. However, in order to make better arrangements, the 2 also reached some understandings. 3 days. As quickly as possible, Lu Chen returned to naval headquarters. Before he came back, he informed Marshal Kong. Therefore, when the ship just entered Marineford's dock, several men in black from the Holy Land came. Lord Lu Chen, we have been ordered to escort Bartholomew Kuma to the Holy Land. One of the men said in a very respectful tone and attitude. It can be seen that these are people from world government. Not an arrogant dog kept in captivity by celestial dragons. Oh, there are people on the boat, you can do it yourself. Lu Chen nodded and then stepped aside. Behind them, the three Hancock sisters, their big eyes full of surprise, their small faces full of shock and amazement. As this naval headquarters, wow, there are so many battleships. Marine is so powerful. Look at that building, it's almost more impressive than the throne in our 9 hometowns. Really, it's too scary. This is just the strength of our headquarters. Didn't Brother Chen say that Marine's strength lies in its military bases all over the world? Yes, no matter which sea area we are in, we can reach the pirates as quickly as possible. It's so awesome. The three little girls seemed like Grandma Lu had entered the city, and she felt that even her eyes were not enough to see them. Swish swish. Suddenly, the sound of breaking through the air came from behind. Several black figures jumped ashore from the deck of the ship at high speed and landed next to Chen. Huh, what are you doing? Hancock turned to look. I saw several men in black, with cold sweat on their foreheads, and fear and panic in their eyes. Lord Chen, that Bartholomew Kuma. The man in black at the head was shocked. Ah, isn't it on the deck? Before the other party could finish speaking, Chen interrupted directly. Yeah, the man in black almost cried. Advertisement. Beside him, his men all looked as if they were facing a powerful enemy, looking frightened and helpless, which was very pitiful. Before he finished speaking, the air was shaking. A burly and huge figure instantly appeared next to the man in black. It was none other than Bartholomew Kuma holding a Bible. Don't be afraid, I'm already a prisoner, he said softly. But when these words fell on the ears of the man in black, an incredible panic arose in his heart. Damn it, they also thought that Chen had arrested Bartholomew Kuma. But now it seems that is not the case. Because Bartholomew Kuma was not shackled, this was the reason why they faced a powerful enemy. Take him away, he won't run away. Chen reacted, waved his hand, and said nonchalantly. Regarding his words, several men in black were dubious, but finally bit the bullet, surrounded Bartholomew Kuma from all sides, switched to another warship, and then left Marineford. As for you, let's get acquainted with Marine first. Chen looked at the three Hancock sisters, then raised his hand to summon a Marine and asked him to take the three sisters directly to Momoshiki. Thus, Momoshiki has 5 little kids by his side. Chen, on the other hand, went directly to the Marshal's office. But halfway, I met an unexpected person. UB ****************** D. Garp looked embarrassed, and his eyes were about to burst into flames when he saw Chen. After Roger was executed, he went to South Blue but didn't find the person he was looking for. Then, I was told that the person I was looking for had already been taken to the headquarters by Chen. Only Garp himself knows how uncomfortable this embarrassment is. Brother, everyone is so busy these days, where have you been? Chen asked and smiled knowingly. Upon hearing this, Garp's anger suddenly dimmed. After that D Roger died, wouldn't there be a lot more pirates in this sea? I'm going to attack them. He hesitated and said without confidence. Oh, I got it. Chen raised his hand and patted his shoulder, saying, but it would be better now that we are back. With you in charge of this headquarters, I believe Roger's wife and children will be safe. After finishing speaking, Garp left without waiting for anything to say. Chen's voice came from a distance. By the way, I forgot to tell you that my mission this time is related to dragons. Advertisement. Upon hearing this, Garp's expression changed, and he immediately turned around and followed him. Marshal's office. Dong dong. Come in. Chen pushed open the door and walked in, followed by Garp. Everyone, sit down. Kong was not surprised by Garp's appearance. Because, there is a Sengoku sitting on the sofa next to him. Quote. Mr. Kong, I probably already told you the matter on the phone bug, now let's go into more detail. After Chen sat down, he looked up at Marshal Kong and said frankly, the mission failed. The words fell. Although they already knew it, when they heard Chen admit it in person, both Kong and Sengoku were a little surprised. Only Garp couldn't help but laugh. Haha, let me just say, don't underestimate the men of the monkey family. Brother, look, your nephew can now stand alone. Chen glanced sideways at Garp and chuckled. Of course, although the mission failed, it was not without gain. I captured the top leaders of the Revolutionary Army, the tyrant Bartholomew Kuma, and destroyed the base of the Revolutionary Army. And through my influence, Bartholomew Kuma was willing to submit to the world government. There was a trace of regret in Kong's eyes. Money is good, Chen added. But, no need to think about it. Bartholomew Kuma. Chen concluded lightly, with a smile on his lips. Garp's expression changed, while Sengoku's eyes widened. Even Marine's Marshal is probably not as good as him. Although the mission failed, the 5 elders still acquiesced to your proposal. As for why he was not sent to impel down, it should be due to the relationship between this guy and the world government. The words fell. By the way, Bartholomew Kuma has been escorted to the Holy Land. The proposal that the 5 elders acquiesced to was, of course, regarding the disposal of Roger's wife and children. As for the difficult and dangerous process, let's not mention it. When Roger's bloodline is born and the world government publicizes it, Chen's prestige in this ocean will reach an unprecedented level. Because 5 elders did not give any response to his plan to recommend Chen to become Marine Marshal. Garp and Sengoku both looked over with envy. Kong nodded and said to Chen. Chapter 158. Ace, the worst bloodline born in naval headquarters, please customize. Advertisement. After listening to Kong's message, Chen nodded. Of course it would be best to get the acquiescence of the 5 elders. However, even if they don't agree, he can still find a way to keep Roger's bloodline legitimately. Mr. Kong, then I will deal with other matters first. After saying goodbye to Kong, Chen went straight to the Marine Scientific Research Department. I wonder how the 3 Hancock sisters get along with Yamato and the others. While thinking about it, Chen quickened his pace and soon reached his destination. Before he even reached the door, a burst of laughter as sweet as silver bells reached Chen's ears from inside the house, mixed with bursts of frolic. It seems that these 5 girls get along very happily. Chen smiled slightly, opened the door and walked in. At that time, Brother Chen summoned such a big tree. In one fell swoop, the huge Julie area was completely covered. Yamato had his back to the door, sitting on an empty experimental table and describing vividly. In front of him were the 3 Hancock sisters with sparkling eyes and Hiyori, who covered her mouth and smiled softly. Brother Marine. Boa Hancock was the first to discover Chen. She ran over happily, her delicate little face full of surprise. Several other little girls also rushed forward. Without exception, they all admired Chen deeply. It seems you had a great time chatting. Chen smiled and rubbed Boa Hancock's black hair. Brother Chen, why do you only touch Hancock? The ignored white-haired girl pouted and shouted dissatisfied. Chen smiled helplessly, then put his other hand on the top of her head and rubbed it hard a few times. Okay, everyone has a share. Then, he touched the heads of the other 3 girls. The girls all jumped for joy and laughed happily. After just joking for a while, Chen estimated that it was almost time to end the chatting time and talk about business. Okay, everyone, calm down first. Seeing Chen's suddenly serious expression, the 5 girls couldn't help but become nervous. After so many days, I believe you have the determination and will to join Marine and be loyal to justice. Advertisement. Yes, they all answered firmly. Very good. Chen smiled slightly. However, judging from your current physical abilities, you are still far from meeting Marine's requirements. So, I will conduct special training for you in the next period of time. I hope you can complete the training and become excellent Marine warriors. I absolutely want to become a Marine, no matter how difficult the training is. Yamato took the lead in taking the oath, and the other girls followed closely and made their vows. Okay, then come with me. After that, Chen took them to the training ground. On the way, the 5 little girls' big eyes were still shining with excitement, and their cheeks were filled with anticipation. But, when the training started, they really felt what hell was. Time flies, half a month has passed like this. What surprised Chen was that all the girls were very determined. Under the devil's training, none of them complained about being tired, but silently wiped away their sweat and gritted their teeth and persisted. Among them, Yamato and Hancock, who are the most talented, have already started advanced training. Unconsciously, Portgas D. Rouge has also reached the stage of labor. On this day, a piece of heavy news spread throughout the naval headquarters. Portgas D. Rouge is about to give birth. As soon as the news came out, the atmosphere in naval headquarters became extremely depressed. Except for Chen, Garp and Sengoku, other Marine senior executives gathered outside the hospital in Marineford. Although CHCA was prepared, everyone was still very nervous when they were about to face it. Should Roger's bloodline be preserved in the world? Someone murmured this. Can the son of the extremely evil pirate king really carry out justice? Someone had doubts. But Chen and others remained silent, quietly waiting for that moment to arrive. Advertisement. In the hospital, all the doctors and nurses were extremely nervous and did not dare to vent their anger. After all, this is Roger's bloodline, and it is also a being that attracts Marine's attention. There must be no mistakes. Wow. A loud cry came from the hospital, and the big shots of Marine outside the hospital were in extremely complicated moods for a moment. Ace is born. The bloodline of the Pirate King was born in Marineford at naval headquarters. For a moment, the atmosphere was dull and everyone fell into silence. After a while, Garp was the first to react. He pushed open the hospital door and rushed into the baby room. Chen and Sengoku followed closely behind. Then, other Marine executives also walked in. The small hospital was suddenly filled with people and packed to the brim. Seeing the swaddled baby boy who was still crying loudly, Garp laughed and lifted him up. Ha 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 ha, this kid looks nothing like his dad. I'm getting older now, so I think I should be this little guy's grandpa. Everyone was speechless. They were clearly trying to take advantage of the dead Roger. Then I will be his teacher. Chen touched his chin and continued. Although everyone was shocked, they were still a little accustomed to it. This must be because the apprentice who has the blood of pirates is addicted. However, the bloodline of the Pirate King was born in the Marine headquarters and was accepted as a student by Chen. Once the news spread, the world of pirates was about to change again. One Piece's son, Ace, was born in Marin Fendo. Moreover, Vice Admiral Chen was punished by heaven and became a disciple of love. The news has now spread throughout major newspapers, and all staff are working hard to write news reports. The Marine headquarters personally issued the order. This is an absolutely big event. They want to warn all pirates that Marine will always protect this world, and no matter how powerful the pirates are, they cannot make trouble here. For a time, countless news birds flew out from major newspaper offices, and their snow-white figures directly enveloped the sky. Pirates from all over the world raised their heads in confusion. The last time so many news birds appeared was when news of Roger's execution was announced. I wonder what will happen this time. Newspapers fell down one after another, and when they saw the headlines clearly, all the pirates were shocked. Chapter 159. Shocking. The son of the Pirate King actually became a marine. Please customize. Advertisement. Sitting on an unknown island, Torapal held a newspaper in his hand and asked other family members with a shocked face. Ah, hey, have you seen today's newspaper? I didn't expect that Roger actually still has blood, Pika. Pika shook the newspaper in his hand, and his whole body was soaked in cold sweat. It's unbelievable. How did they find the bloodline of Pirate Wong Kunshan? After a while, Corazon raised this question, and everyone fell silent. Even the characters that One Piece wanted to hide couldn't escape Marine's pursuit, so they. Doflamingo leaned against the conference throne and covered his face with the newspaper to hide the beads of sweat that couldn't stop flowing from his forehead. It seemed that it was time for them to move their positions. Lord Moria, a zombie crew member limps toward Moria with a newspaper in hand. Moria took the newspaper and glanced at it, her pupils kept shrinking. Roger's son was accepted as a disciple by that pervert marine. All the words revealed shocking news. For a moment, he didn't know which one should be shocked first. Damn it, it seems like it's better to avoid the limelight in the near future. After that, Moria ordered the crew to turn the ship around and return to the Devil's Triangle. In the middle of the sea, on a raft drifting wildly with the current, a man with a black hat covering his face was closing his eyes to meditate. Suddenly, a news bird flew over and dropped a roll of newspapers on his head. There have been a lot of big things recently. He picked up the newspaper and glanced at it. The next second, a sharp aura suddenly spread out. Roger's bloodline. The man didn't read the news in the newspaper, and his mood couldn't calm down for a long time. This man named Chen is not only outstanding in strength, but also has very bold ideas. He is really a formidable opponent. Sabayati Archipelago. Shanks held the newspaper tightly with both hands, his body shaking uncontrollably. Their captain actually still has an heir. And the one who took him in was the same marine who captured the captain. They say they are taking them in, but in fact they may not be sure how they will treat the captain's bloodline. Mr. Rayleigh, we must save the captain's bloodline from these hateful marines. Advertisement. Shanks looked at Rayleigh beside him, and his inner obsession rose again. Shanks, don't be so impulsive. Rayleigh sighed and cast his gaze into the distance. That's good, that's good. Mr. Rayleigh, that's marine. Shanks looked at him puzzled. Shanks, have you ever thought about the cost of attacking marine headquarters? Rayleigh shook her head and said slowly. Even our captain is no match for Vice Admiral, so what capital do we have to bring the child back? Furthermore, if Marine wants to rely on this child to fight pirates, he will probably not do anything to this child. It seems like it would be better to let him grow up at Marine's place. After that, he touched Shank's head again. The captain gave up himself just so that we could live a better life, so how can we live up to his expectations? Didn't you decide to go to sea? Go and prepare well. Just leave these things to us old guys to worry about. Although Shanks was unwilling to give in, he knew that Rayleigh was right. At the same time, he also secretly made up his mind. He must work hard to become stronger and become the king of the sea. As expected of Uncle Chen, he actually dares to accept the son of the Pirate King as his apprentice. Long looked at the report in the newspaper and couldn't help but admired it. He relied on protracted war, given by Chen during the last meeting and successfully liberated 2 countries in this half with its content. This book definitely lives up to its name as a big killer. Of course, Uncle Chen, who can sum up this book, is a natural god of war. This uncle of yours is really scary. Ivankov brought his head closer, glanced at the contents of the newspaper, and was immediately amazed. It recalled the destruction of Batargo not long ago. Chen's terrifying power makes his hair stand on end whenever he thinks about it. After hearing Ivankov's comments, Long raised the corners of his mouth unconsciously. Uncle Chen not only has courage, but also courage and strength. He can always do things that shock the whole world. This time, I am afraid it will also set off a huge storm within the pirates. New World, Moby DK. RT. Advertisement. The son of Pirate King Roger, the most evil bloodline, was born in Marin Fendo. Marco read the newspaper report, his voice became more and more trembling. Heavenly Punishment Vice Admiral Chen accepted his son as his apprentice and promised to lead him to carry out justice and crack down on the pirates making trouble at sea. What? Pirate King Roger still has blood? Sachi's eyes widened and his mouth opened to an incredible extent. This news is even more shocking than what Roger said before his death. ... Someone suddenly shouted, and everyone looked at the burly man sitting on the throne in unison. Whitebeard Edward Newgate's face was gloomy and solemn at this time, and the shock in his heart had reached an extremely high level. 0. The son of the Pirate King became Marine. What a ridiculous and terrible thing. This man, Chen, once again brought infinite impact to the world, and these impacts became more severe each time. Even Whitebeard couldn't help but feel a little flustered. The world of pirates may be about to change. But, Marine, don't underestimate us. Even though he was shocked, Whitebeard did not panic. He snorted coldly, and then said emotionally, Roger's era has passed, and the son of the Pirate King only has an empty name. This sea will not stop anyone's freedom. Pace. Influenced by Whitebeard, several squad captains also became inspired again. Long live Daddy. Long live the Whitebeard Pirates. Dad is the king of the new era. Inside the house, Momonosuke also heard the news. He thought of his father, Kazuki Oden, and tears fell instantly, but the next second, Whitebeard's words rang in his mind. As long as I become strong enough, I don't need to be afraid of anyone. Momonosuke's eyes gradually became firm. He wiped away his tears and secretly made a vow in his heart. He must practice harder and become stronger than everyone else, until he can't even defeat the Vice Admiral. He wants to take back Wano-kuni from the hands of the world government. After finding his father, he will be very pleased to see Wano-kuni prospering in his hands. Chapter 160. Lu Chen, related to Ohara. Please customize. Advertisement. The news that the bloodline of the Pirate King was born in Marineford and was accepted as a student by the Vice Admiral quickly spread around the world. For a time, Lu Chen's prestige reached an unprecedented level. The five elders are very satisfied with the emergence of such a soldier in Marine whose reputation and strength are unrivaled. It's just that because of the shadow left by the Revolutionary Army, they have not made an immediate decision on the position of Marshal Marine. But as soon as this incident came out, the five elders have now relaxed their mentality, and they even discussed the possibility of Lu Chen becoming the Marshal. Lu Chen's move is risky, but the effect looks pretty good. The old man with long white hair said. An old man with gray curly hair who had dealt with Lu Chen praised. From the first time I saw him, I knew this guy was special. As a monkey, he is bold and smart, and the most important thing is to insist on justice. I think he has the qualifications to become Marine Marshal. Yes, if he serves as Marine Marshal, the world government will also have greater prestige, and can get twice the result with half the effort in combating pirates. The old man with short blonde hair said with a smile. Regarding the important position of Marshal Marine, they were chatting as if they were at home, and couldn't stop praising Lu Chen, as if the previous unhappiness had never happened. But just then, there was the sound of footsteps, and a man in a space suit walked in. It was the celestial dragons that Lu Chen disgraced, Saint Roswaiter. Holy Roswaiter, what kind of wind brings you here? The conversation was interrupted, and the bald old man with glasses said with an unhappy expression. They all know that Saint Roswaiter hates Lu Chen and has been trying to take revenge on him. But Lu Chen's reputation has now reached its peak, and it is impossible for the five elders to leverage the interests of the world government for him. Facing the impatient gazes of the five elders, Saint Roswaiter sneered, took out a thick stack of information from his arms, and threw it to the bald old man. The bald old man took the information, took a glance at it, and the expression on his face became solemn. This is. The other five elders saw his complexion change drastically, and their expressions became serious. Advertisement. Your legendary hero of Marine seems to be related to Ohara. Saint Roswald looked at the gloomy five elders with sinister eyes, feeling an indescribable joy in his heart. He ordered people to investigate Lu Chen with all their strength. After many days of inquiries, they finally discovered that there were traces of Lu Chen in Ohara. Moreover, Lu Chen seems to have a wife and daughter there. This information completely shocked the five elders. We have to pay attention to the scholars of Ohara. They learned from recent intelligence that Ohara scholars are secretly conducting research on historical texts, trying to decipher the true face of those 10 years in the sky that were erased by the world government. Once their research is exposed, it will inevitably cause an unprecedented blow to the order of the entire world. Not to mention, now Lu Chen actually has contact with Ohara. Ohara, it seems we can't stay. After a while, the old man with long white hair said slowly, and the other five elders also agreed. It's time to move ahead with Ohara's plan to wipe Ohara off the world map. As soon as he walked out of the gate of the world government headquarters, Saint Roswaiter couldn't help laughing. Thinking of Lu Chen's painful expression, Saint Roswaiter couldn't help but let 100 flowers blossom in his heart. Lu Chen, you think you are a so-called marine hero, so how dare you disrespect the celestial dragons? You will definitely experience the consequences of going against me in the future. Ha 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 ha. The world's attention was attracted by Ace's birth. Some pirates who wanted to become famous quickly took advantage of this opportunity to cause trouble all over the world. The Marine headquarters also became busy around these pirates. As Ace's master, Lu Chen had to stay at Marine headquarters and assume the responsibility of managing him. He once again became the most idle vice admiral in the department. How can such a young child cause trouble? I think these people are still in a hurry. And Garp, who has been clamoring to be Ace's grandfather, drags Lu Chen to visit Ace in a special lounge every day. Look at how cute this little guy is. He looks nothing like his father. Advertisement. Garp teased Ace with his fingers, making him giggle. While he was busy, he did not forget to complain to Lu Chen. Brother, when will you bring Robin back for me to see? After not seeing her for so many days, she should have grown into a beautiful girl. It can't be that fast. Lu Chen couldn't help but complain. But yes, he has been very busy during this period, and it has been a long time since he returned to Ohara to visit Albia and Robin. I don't know how they are doing now. Does Luobao miss her father very much? Just take advantage of these few days to go back and have fun with them for a while. Garp bared his teeth and shot back. Lu Chen raised his eyebrows, responded, and then walked towards the Marshal's office. Report to Vice Admiral. Marshal Kong has something important to ask of you. Please go to his office to meet as soon as possible. Just as he was about to use Flying Thunder God to leave, there was a knock on the door of the calendar office. Tisk, you irresponsible master. Lu Chen frowned. Although he felt very unhappy, he still had to deal with the work. When he mentioned his son, Garp became angry. Brother, this is your fate. Oh, that brat Long wants to make some sort of revolution, and I don't know when I will be able to have a grandson. Lu Chen said with a smile, and then there was a hint of reminiscence on his face, and said, it's been a while since I went back to see mother and daughter. I plan to go back to Ohara in the next few days. Brother, just come and play with Ace by yourself. Seeing Garp's disappointed look, Lu Chen couldn't help but laugh. Kong is so anxious to see him, what is the urgent matter? Haha, brother, that's not right. I always teach him to carry out justice, but I don't lead him down the wrong path. Garp curled his lips and turned his back to Lu Chen and said, tell little Robin for me that uncle misses her so much. He also prepared delicious cookies for her on 4.1 and asked her when she can come and see uncle. Looking at the resentful air of an empty nest man emanating from Garp, Lu Chen laughed and said, okay. After leaving Ace's breeding room, Lu Chen returned to his office and carefully organized the information on his desk. Come to think of it, first I'm a Marine, but my son has become a wanted criminal, which is hard for anyone to accept. HMPH, don't think I don't know, you are also responsible for what that kid is doing now.